Hi y'all, I am back home in Tennessee and ready to do some catfishing, which we're gonna do right now. So grab your snacks, get you some sunglasses. It's a bright day out here, folks. We're gonna drop some baits and get after it. And I'm gonna put y'all on the chest while we do it. We're going unedited today, raw and uncut. Y'all gonna see it all from right now when we cut our baits up to when we roll out of here today. And after I get these baits on, I'll give you the rundown, kind of where we're at, what we're planning on doing today. I'll show you. I don't have a graph on this kayak, but I'm going to pull up an app on my phone called Navionics that kind of shows the contours of the river bottom, and I'll show you kind of on a map what it looks like where we're set up here today, and kind of give you an idea of what my thought process is coming out here after having been gone for a while. I went down to Florida for 2 weeks, and I got back home during the polar vortex that we were having here in Tennessee, and I for damn sure wasn't going out fishing in it. So this is my first catfishing session in a little over 3 weeks now. So I'm kind of starting over again, if you will, kind of having to kind of figure out what's going on, what it's going to take to catch catfish right now, where they're at, what they're doing. We got to learn all this stuff again. So on one of my Florida trips videos, I talked about doing something a little different when I'm fishing in this kayak. This is my Hobie Lynx kayak. It's a bare bones basic setup. No graph, no motor, just human powered. Couple rod holders, which I've jimmy rigged on. We're going to try this mount out today. We'll see how it goes. But one of the things I want to do in this kayak is run a big bait and small baits. I want to use small baits to get us some action, and I want to use a big bait to hopefully entice a bigger fish. So here on this rod, we have a whole gizzard shad. It's fresh, got those yesterday. It's about, I'd guesstimate 7-8 inches long. It's one of they're all about that size, the gizzards that I got yesterday. And I've got it on a double hook rig, although these hooks, how well you can see there, are a little bit smaller. These are a smaller wire gauge hook, and I'm doing that because in this, and I've got it on a dragging rig here, folks. This is I've got a float and rattle here up to a dragging sinker. I've changed, I'll tell you about that here in a minute. I've changed plans coming out here today. I come out expecting to do one thing, and well, we're going to end up doing another while we're out here. But we're going to drop it down. I've got 2 hooks in it since it's a larger bait. That's one of the things I'm trying to be more conscientious about. So when I'm using bigger baits like that, have a second hook to hopefully help those short strikes. Oftentimes when I've used big baits in the past, you fight the fish a little while and it just lets go. And I think it's because, well, it probably never had your hook. It was probably clamped on the bait and just never had it. So we're going to set that there in that rod holder. Now I'm going to put on, let's get our other bait cut up here. This one, we're going to cut up some smaller pieces of this bait. Again, I talked about this on one of my Florida trips. I don't know which one it was. Hell, it's been a couple weeks ago now at this point. But I want to put on obviously I want to catch big fish, right? Like that's what I want to do every time I go out. I think that's what most of us want to do that go fishing. You want to catch big fish, right? The problem is if you just go after big fish, at least for me anyway, you're going to limit your bites, and I get bored. I need action. I need something going on. I need to reel something in. So I thought in this kayak, since we can only run 2 rods in this thing, with the size of this kayak and all, why not have one rod set up to where you're just basically running a small hook setup, small baits. Now, small baits doesn't necessarily mean you're just going to catch small fish, right? Like you can hook a big fish on the smaller baits. I'm actually going to cut the gut pocket out of those too, on those pieces. I mean, hell, every year you hear some crappie fisherman saying they hooked a 50-pound flathead on a 1/16 ounce jig and 6-pound line, right? Like it happens. Big fish eat small baits. But the smaller baits and smaller hooks give you an opportunity to catch a lot of those fish that are going to be down there maybe pecking on your bigger baits, but just can't get hooked up with them. And so I want to have one rod with the big bait and one rod with the small bait, and hopefully be able to get some action. So we got something going on, so I'm not bored out of my gourd while we wait on the bigger fish to work through. And we'll see how this goes. I don't know if it will be particularly enjoyable to watch. I don't know if I'll be particularly into it myself or not, but time will tell. So anyway, here's this setup. This is what I've used on this light tackle rod in some recent catfish videos before I left for Florida, but it's a Kentucky rig. You've got a couple dropper loops with a smaller hook. This is a, I think, 1/0 size hook there on those, and I've just got a couple pieces of them gizzard shad body sections. I cut the gut pocket out, make them even smaller, and then a dragging sinker there on bottom. And we're going to lower it down and let it hit bottom. And I'm anchored down here right now. This is going to be the plan for today, I think, folks. I come out here, I left my house with the thought of us trolling today, starting in the back of this creek and working our way out to here throughout the afternoon. That was what I had initially planned on doing. However, I get out here, the water, first off, the first thing I noticed is the water is crystal clear. And again, you're probably gonna not be able, let me get my glasses on first off here, folks. I gotta put the shades on before I turn around into the sun to try to talk to y'all a little bit on camera before we get to it. But we got our rods out here though. Big bait on the left, small baits on the right. But anyway, I get out here and the first thing I notice, the water's crystal clear. You won't really be able to tell out here because we're fishing so deep right now, but there's probably 3, 4, 5 foot of visibility. I mean, it's really clear. So I don't like fishing super clear water for catfish. It's just, I would rather the water be super muddy than super clear, at least for catfish anyway. And so when you're back in the shallows, and I thought today we'd probably start 8 to 10 feet deep and then work our way progressively deeper. Well, when you're in that clear water and you got a bright sunny day like we have today, your kayak's putting off a huge shadow going right over the top of these fish, and I think it spooks them. I don't like doing it. So I noticed that right away. I was like, well, that's bad news. We got water this clear. Well, I start coming on out in this creek, and I'm looking around because I don't have a graph. I don't know what's going on with the bait, right? If you just got a basic 2D graph, you can kind of see schools of shad as you move along, kind of figure out what depth they're at, where's the bait. I wasn't seeing anything flipping in the back. I start coming out, I start looking for birds, right? Because there's these white birds, and there's one over there, there's a big flock of them over here on this island over here. But you'll see them in these creeks oftentimes. They'll be flying around the air, swooping down, getting shad. Somebody told me what them things are called, I can't remember, but they're here in Tennessee in the winter months. And you'll see them just attacking these shad from above. Well, there's nothing back there. I didn't see the first bird till I got all the way out here by this island, and this creek, I probably had a 1 to 2 mile run or so to get out here. So we covered a lot of water just to get out here. Didn't see no birds flying up above, didn't see no herons on the shoreline. So that tells me just 2 plus 2, the bait has probably moved out a little deeper. And so that's why we've come out here. Now I'm gonna take my phone and I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna pull up that app. And Navionics is hit or miss in a lot of places, but out here on the Tennessee River where I fish, it is pretty accurate. It's pretty good. So here we are. I don't know how well you can see this with the glare and the sun. This may be a waste of time here. Let me turn this way, maybe away from the sun. Maybe you can get a better look at it here. I don't know if it's better to have the sun or not. I can't see this camera to see what y'all are seeing, but bottom line is here, folks, I'll try to explain to you what we are. So over here to our left is the main river channel, right? This is a big wide section of the Tennessee River. Back up in here to the right is where that old creek run out here. And what I did is I come out here and I found the entrance to where this old creek would have dumped off into the main river channel back before the reservoir was made, back before you know, the Tennessee River was impounded there with the dams. And so this old, and I know this should be true from just having experience, having fished out here before with electronics, I know this old creek channel exists. You can find the old cut where that creek channel run down through here. And so I have used the Navionics app to try to put us at the top of the drop before it goes off down here, which should have us with our water level down for winter drawdown. We should be somewhere around 40 feet deep, give or take. Now, with this crystal clear water, we may still be putting off a shadow down there, but not as much so as what we would back there in toward the back of the creek. And what I'm hoping is the fact I wasn't seeing any bait activity back there, I'm hoping that the bait has pulled out and it's out here right now. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping it's deep and out toward the end of this creek, and we're gonna have just a dead shad and some cut pieces of shad down there in that school. And as these catfish move out of the main river channel out in here and they come up into this creek, we're gonna have, hell, we got something right here. Something was nipping at it right there, folks. Let me get my phone back in the jacket there. I think we're hooked up already. Let me grab this thing. Well, good news, it's a small fish, but it didn't rip the rod holder off. That's a good sign. That didn't take long, folks. It didn't take long at all. That's what I'm hoping for today, folks. I'm hoping that there's some bait out here and hopefully some fish out here in and around this bait. That's what I'm hoping for. And I hope that we get enough action on this light tackle rod to keep me engaged while we wait on our big bait to get eat. Small dink blue, but he's a skunk buster, man. I'll take it. Fish number one. How does it feel to be fish number one on this video, Blue Cat? He said he don't care. He said, Justin, ain't nobody gonna watch this crap in the winter anyway. That's what he says. He's talking bad about y'all, folks. All right, dinkity-doo-dah blue. Back down he goes. My pliers are about rusted shut there from Florida. Salt water is no bueno on metal, folks. My pedal drive got corroded. My pliers, my cut, everything metal gets corroded in salt water. Everything. And it don't take long either. Let's drop that back down. Hey, we got us some fish right off the bat, man. But yeah, like I was saying, I'm hoping the fact I'm not seeing bait activity farther back in this creek, I'm hoping that's a sign that they've pulled out. I'm hoping they're out here kind of staged up somewhere around either the creek mouth, which I'm hoping we are set up in based on, you know, the Navionics. I'm hoping we're right here at the top of the drop. I would oftentimes bait when it pulls out of a creek will kind of stage up in the old creek mouth, kind of around either the top of the drop or the bottom of the drop. And regardless, we're positioned in such a way that as them fish come out of the main channel, they're going to follow that old creek bed up to eat, and we're sitting here, right here in their way with an easy meal for them. Now, water temperatures, it's cold, man. Yesterday, I went out to get us some bait for today. I took my motorized kayak with the graph, 41 degrees, where I went to get the bait yesterday. I had an accident too yesterday, y'all. I'm damn near embarrassed to tell this story. It's one of the dumbest things. I was so pissed off yesterday. My initial thought yesterday was, I actually took some catfish gear with me, or I'd packed it. And I thought I'd go out, if we can get bait quickly, we'll just try to do a catfish trip yesterday. Well, I didn't make it off my carport before I was so pissed off that I knew trying to film yesterday was going to be a complete waste of time. I was just in too pissed off a mood. But I'd done one of the dumbest things. Every time in my life I think, I can't possibly do anything more stupid, I find a way to top myself. And yesterday takes the cake. Let's just get right into it, folks. We got a lot to cover today. So, regular viewers, you know, I recently got a new kayak trailer. And getting that trailer was quite the ordeal. It took 5 months to get it. It took forever. You know, the dude that built the trailer, totally unreliable. It was an ordeal to get the thing. But I finally get it, right? It's a very nice kayak trailer. I can step up on it and walk down, push the kayak off, so I don't get my feet wet here in the cold winter months and stuff. And like it's, you know, it's a nice trailer. Yesterday, I hook up the trailer. I got my gear packed. I go to leave, and I'm pulling the trailer off the carport, and all of a sudden you hear, boom. I was like, what the hell did I do? My dumb ass clipped my carport post with the wheel and fender of the trailer. And I didn't hit it hard. Hell, I didn't even go far. Like maybe from where the wheel and fender was to the post was, I don't know, maybe 10 feet. And I took my foot, I put my vehicle in drive, I took my foot off the brake and was just idling out of the carport. But by damn, I clipped that carport post, took a chunk out of my carport post. Thankfully, it's like them big wood posts, the squirrely, like 6x6s, I think. It's the big wood posts, they're concreted in. Didn't do any major damage to the carport other than knocking a chunk out of the wood. But my trailer broke the weld on the fender, crumpled the fender, pushed it up against the tire. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I just got this trailer. I've barely used it, and I wrecked the damn thing, pulling off my carport. So thankfully, that the metal on the fender is real thin, I guess aluminum, metal, I don't know. I was able to pull it off the wheel there, but the weld's about half broke off. I'm gonna have to have that fixed. But I was so pissed off, I was like, damn it, you know, like what? I mean, can't get off the damn carport. Like, Justin, how stupid can you get? So, anyway, by the time I got to the water, I was still fuming mad yesterday. And I went down to Watts Bar Dam. Some of them creeks down there by Watts Bar Dam is oftentimes stacked with bait this time of year in the winter months. You get these huge schools of shad, and oftentimes catfish under and on top of and around these giant schools. I thought I'd go down there, so I took my motorized kayak, had the graph and everything. I didn't see nothing. I mean, nothing anywhere. Wasn't seeing the birds. I wasn't seeing the bait on the graph. I mean, it was the Dead Sea. And I was so pissed off anyway, I was like, you know what? I'm going to the house. I'm done. I don't want to fool with this today. So I load up, I go home. I'm sitting there, and it's still quite a bit of daylight left in the afternoon. I was like, I need to get some bait for today. The weather was supposed to be a little bit warmer today. I was like, I need to get us some bait. So I unhook a trailer. I put this kayak in the back of the truck, and I go over and I hit another creek. This one closer to the house. I wasn't gonna make a long drive again, but I fished closer to the house yesterday. Took my cast net out, and I'm unloading this kayak off the truck. And what I do is this one here, it's so lightweight, I don't put it on a trailer or anything. I just load it in the back of the truck bed, right? And so when I'm unloading, I pull it out where the front's on the edge, I set the back down, and then I go grab the front and then set it down on the ground. And then put my wheels on to roll it down to the ramp. Well, I'm pulling that thing out the truck bed. I guess I was still pissed off about the trailer not really paying attention. I pulled it out too far, so the front of it goes bam on the ground. Well, this kayak, it ain't like a normal roto-molded kayak that's got some durability. This thing you got to be pretty gentle with. Part of the appeal of this kayak is it's super lightweight. The downside of it being super lightweight is the plastic is very thin. It's foam wrapped in a thin layer of plastic. So you don't get the durability. Well, I must have hit just the perfect jagged piece of gravel when it fell because it punctured the bottom of it. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, man. It wasn't my day yesterday, folks. I had a bad Judy on me, some dark cloud. One of y'all got a voodoo doll and a hex or something to put on me. I don't know, but anyway, I was like, hell, I'm already here. I'm gonna get out there and make a bunch of million random throws and try to get us some shad. And so I never found any threadfin shad. I thought we'd get some small threadfins. That's what we'd bait our light tackle rod with. But I never got any. Oh, we got something right there. Ooh, look at that, look at that. Other than that, it's gonna pull a little bit now. That one took it down a little harder. Good news, the rod holder held up good again. You give me enough time and enough supplies, I can jimmy rig about anything, folks. Oh, hello. All right. The small bait we got on here, oftentimes in the winter, small baits will outperform big baits. So don't be shocked if we do hook a monster today on this. It's going to be an ordeal with the light tackle rod. We'll have a damn good time. Now this one here, it ain't no monster, but it is better than the last one for sure. We'll have us a grand old time if we hook into something big on this rod right here today, folks, and we just might. The fact we've got 2 fish so quickly, hell, that's a fun sizer right there. I mean, what'd y'all do with my glove? Did y'all leave it in Florida too? There it is. I'm glad y'all packed that today. Nice of you. May need this thing. You know what else we needed to use today too? Should have used it on the last one. This in here will handle. If we get another small one, remind me to use my de-hooking tool. I got a new gadget, folks. We're gonna try it out today. I used it down in Florida with that fishing guide I met, Chase, but we're gonna try it out on some catfish today. Okay, Blue Kitty. Yes, sir, folks. And he left the bait on too. Boy, both these fish have been nice. We got plenty of bait, but both of them wanted to give it back. I could give this fish here some front camera time, but I ain't going to. We'll set up our front camera mount there in a minute. Me hold him out like that, that's a fun sizer, man. And he's fat too, he's been eating good. He don't have any mud on him, which that's a good sign. Means they're out and about. I was worried with the polar vortex. I mean, it's warmer today, but we've had some really frigid cold temperatures in Tennessee. I was worried them fish might have been kind of buried down, but maybe they're getting active, getting out and about. Well, both them baits are still on. They've not been down there very long, so let's just send them back down. Where are we at on this video? 20-something minutes and we already got 2 fish. That's a good sign. So anyway, yesterday I was having just a rotten, stinking day. But I was bound and determined at that point to get us some bait. So I went out and I threw the net in this other creek on Loudon, Fort Loudon there, and finally got us some gizzard shad, and they were significantly deeper. I didn't see any thread fins anywhere. I mean, nowhere. And even out there, I did see some birds, but they were just laying on the water. They wasn't like flying around, swooping down or nothing. I wasn't seeing herons on the shoreline. I think them thread fins have probably moved deep. But the gizzards, thankfully, I just kept throwing and throwing and throwing, and finally I got us quite a few gizzards, which I've put half in this cooler, and I got half in my fridge at home for maybe tomorrow and the next day. The weather is looking pretty good. Today and the next couple days, we're supposed to have temps in the low 50s, which is feels like a daggone. It still feels cold for me, kind of being used to the Florida weather, but from the temperatures that we've had since I've been home, it's a welcome change, buddy. I'll take it. And I'm hoping that as this weather heats up, that it's going to hopefully get these catfish turned on and active and maybe start to heat up these creeks again. Yesterday, you know, when I made that first run down there at Watts Bar, water temp was 41. And it was getting, when I went into the creek, I started, you know, I went across I put in there to dam and went across and was working my way back into those two creeks that I went in. And of course, I wasn't seeing nothing from the entrances back, but the water temperature was getting colder the shallower the water got. And I think with the warmer temperatures we have coming today and the next few days, and like today being a sunny day certainly will help too, it may start to kind of heat up the shallows a little more, maybe warm them up a little bit, and hopefully that will get the bait on the move and get the catfish on the move. And because I really thought today what I wanted to do coming out here was to start kind of in the shallows and troll our way out toward the deeper water and hopefully run into some fish on the way in case they were already moving today with the sun out and stuff. But I took a look at the water and I thought the water clarity yesterday down there to dam, it was super clear too, but I thought being up here farther up that I thought we might have a little bit more dirtier water, but shows what the hell I know. Because it's crystal clear here too. So nevertheless, we out here. My plan now is, plan B is to fish on the creek mouth here. We're going to anchor down and just sit here for the afternoon. And hopefully as the afternoon progresses, that sun continues to beat down, we'll get some fish working up. Hopefully we're deep enough here that the kayak isn't going to be spooking anything. The wind, not bad right now. It's supposed to die down even more though throughout the afternoon. It was up more this morning and supposed to progressively decline through the day. So hopefully some of this chop that we've got right now, which is minimal, but it's enough to make it kind of pop against the kayak hull. And this kayak, because of the material that it's made out of, it's a little louder than a normal roto-molded kayak. So when you do have a little bit of waves and chop on the water, it's more noticeable here than in another kayak, a regular kayak. So clear water and that hull slap, I just don't think it's good for business. That's my opinion on it. Somebody out there may disagree, but that's my opinion. And if I don't think it's good for business, then confidence-wise, it's going to have a hard time for me to stick with it if we ain't getting bit. So I want us to get bit. And so anyway, that's the plan. That's going to be the new plan for today. We'll see how today goes. And if it does go well today, then we will try to find something similar for tomorrow. If this doesn't go well, then tomorrow we may go hit maybe some main channel areas. Either work a main channel ledge, work a flat off of a main channel. We're basically starting at zero here, folks. I've been away from home for so long between my trip to Florida and just the fact that when I got back, I didn't fish for a solid week because it was so dang cold. It's like starting over again. Like I don't really have any idea of what's going on with these fish. And so when you've taken a long break, or let's say you're going somewhere new, right? Like maybe you're going on a vacation or you're taking a trip somewhere or getting ready for a tournament and you're going to a new body of water that you've never been to before. Or maybe you're fishing it at a time of year that you've never fished before. You kind of have to start at the beginning, right? You kind of have to just progressively, piece by piece, break it apart and figure out a pattern, figure out where you're going to be able to catch fish at. And so that's kind of what we're doing here, starting over, is with my break and this polar vortex weather that we had come through, where it's just bitterly cold for so long, it really zapped the water temperature. It's a big drop in the water temperatures from when I left until yesterday there, 41 degrees. So we're just going to figure it out. We'll put our time in this week here, try to get a session in next 3 days. I've got enough bait for it, thankfully. So just gizzard shad though, that's all we got. Well, I couldn't I couldn't find anything else. Didn't have any other like drum, suckers, carp, buffalo. Didn't net anything like that. I haven't been on, even before I went to Florida, I've been off the skipjack for a while. Like I haven't had I didn't have a good year for skipjack last year, and ain't nothing changed coming into 2025. So the good thing is though, here's the good thing about this. My favorite time to use gizzard shad for bait is right now, in the winter months when it's cold. When you got water temperatures in the 40s, that's when gizzard shad shines as a bait here in East Tennessee. So I feel like we've got the best bait to use. And like I said, we got it took me a lot of throws to get them, but by gosh, we got us enough bait here for 2 or 3 days. And I'm encouraged, man, already to get, I know there's small fish there, but that's what I wanted with that small rod, the lighter tackle rod. I wanted to have smaller baits that the dinks, the smaller blues, could easily get. Oftentimes you'll get pecks and bites. Sometimes they'll even pull your rod tip down a little bit. But it's small fish and they're chewing up your larger baits. I want to be able to go ahead and catch those while having a big bait, which you can make an argument, maybe right now with these conditions, not the time to be running a big bait. But you never know, man, if these fish if they've been down in the mud and really inactive and they turn on, they might be hungry, they might take a big bait. And so one of the things I talked about on one of them Florida videos was taking a setup like this kayak. I can run 2 rods. It's the max I can run in this thing. I just don't have the space in this small kayak. But usually, like in my other kayaks, when I've run 2 rods, I'm using a head and a chunk, right? Like a head bait, which I've had a lot of success catching big fish with, and then a chunk, which I've caught big fish on the chunks too, but you oftentimes just get more action, if you will. I was like, maybe we switch things up. Maybe we go really small baits like we've done here, and then put on a whole bait, like whatever the biggest bait I have on a particular day. Today it's a 7-8 inch gizzard shad. Some trip in the future we might have a 2 or 3 pound skipjack on, or a 1 or 2 pound red horse sucker, or a 14 inch crappie, whatever our biggest bait is that we have. Put that thing on whole. Slice a fillet off or cut some slits in it, get it bleeding, get it leaching some oils and blood, and put the whole damn thing on. Meanwhile, we got our other rod over here, lighter tackle, to catch this, hopefully some smaller fish to give us some action while we wait on big fish to come through. And if it's a day where fish are just like super aggressive and they want that huge bait, we'll have it out. Or if it's a day where fish are really inactive and hesitant, we'll have some really small baits out. We're kind of covering our bases like that. But that rod there, like I said, them hooks are a little bit smaller. I think those are 4/0 size hooks, actually. 4/0 or 5/0 size, but they're thinner wire hooks. And here's why I've done that. Like I mentioned, I've jimmy rigged this rod holder set up on this kayak. The Hobie links, you cannot drill into it because of the design of it. Like, you can't drill in. So you're kind of limited on how you can put stuff on. Normally on a kayak, I like to drill into the hull, run bolts through my rod holder bases, and either have a backing plate under there to give it extra rigidity, extra support, or if it's thicker plastic, and most of the better quality kayaks are, you can just get by with a big washer and a nut under there and secure them to the hull. That way, big fish hammers your bait, which is either suspended or right on bottom, right under you. They load up the rod. You don't have any fears of the rod holder, all that getting ripped off the kayak. Well, I have fears today that we're going to lose a whole rod holder, everything off the kayak. So, and hell by God, I'm talking about it and I didn't even do it. What I'm going to do is loosen my drag a little today. There we go, that's better. we're loosening our drag a little and not going to let that rod load up as much. Not going to let it that fish put as much torque on the rod holder and the base until we figure out if this is suitable or not. But here's the thing. If you're running your drag significantly looser and you're fishing in a small kayak, which we are, it can be difficult to hook fish if you've got a larger gauge wire hook. And most of the bigger hooks for catfish, they're really thick wire. I don't know why you can't get a thin, I know why. I can tell you, I've worked with Catfish Sumo a few years. I've pitched this idea to Daniel, the owner, numerous times. I get rejected every time. Here's the thing. If you get a thinner gauge wire hook, they're going to bend more easily, right? Because they're thinner gauge wire. Well, what's going to happen is you're going to have somebody using them thinner gauge wire hooks with the drag cranked down as tight as possible. They're going to bend the hook when a big fish hits, or they're going to bend it with their pliers, getting it out of the fish, and they're going to leave a bunch of nasty reviews saying all these hooks suck, they're bending too easy. That's why the companies won't make them. But I wanted a thin gauge wire hook today because with our drag being loose, and being in the small kayak, when I move my body weight forward and lean over to the side to grab that rod, we're taking pressure off that fish, right? Like with circle hooks, you don't want to release that pressure, but when we shift our weight forward and down, it's going to give a little slack over there. So our best chance of getting that fish hooked properly is going to be with the thinnest gauge wire possible, because the thinner the gauge wire, the easier it is to penetrate through something. Now, we may bend some hooks possibly, but I'm okay with that. I mean, hooks are cheap. At least the smaller hooks like that are anyway. So that's why I put those on. Now, I did have to make normally I like about 80 pound leader, monofilament leader. I like that heavier mono because it's thick enough that the catfish's mouth, they're a bit abrasive. They're like sandpaper-like texture there on that bony plate in their mouth. If you got too thin a gauge mono, too light a line for your leader, it gets scuffed up a little quickly. Sometimes they can break you off like that. The heavier mono is better for the abrasion resistance, and it gives me something to grab when I'm landing the fish, because I don't use a net, I got to grab my leader. So when I've got a firm grip on that leader and that fish starts wanting to roll or thrash, the heavier line gives me the confidence to know he ain't just going to snap my line in half. Well, I couldn't use the heavier leader with those hooks because the hook eye is too small. I couldn't thread 80 pound through there. So I had some 50 that I was able to wedge through. So we got a 50 pound leader on that setup. That one there, I believe, on the light tackle, I believe is 30. I know it's 30 pound braid for the main line. I think it's 30 pound fluoro for the leader, I think. It's been a while since I tied that. I've done forgot. But anyway, folks, that's kind of the thought process for everything. The really big bait, really small baits, why I'm using the two hooks in the bigger bait, no matter where the fish eats it, how they eat it, hopefully they get one of the hooks. The reason for the thinner wire hooks, the reason for the lighter leader, the reason I've got my drag set lighter. That's kind of the rationale. Take it for what you will. I'd mentioned, it's been a while, but I talked about when you do something new, and this could be true of something trivial like switching kayaks, switching boats, or maybe something bigger in life. Maybe you switch schools, maybe you switch jobs, careers. Anytime you make a change, you got two options. You can either adapt to your new environment, or you can make your new environment adapt to you. And historically, I have always tried to make my kayaks adapt to me. I have a way that I like to fish, and by damn, I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen. But with this kayak, I got to thinking about it. I was like, well, what if, because I really like this kayak, folks. I really do. This is my favorite kayak that I have fished out of to this point. And I want to make it work for catfishing as well. It's great for the ultralight fishing. It's great in the ocean. But for catfishing, I'm still working out the kinks. But in the event I can't really make it work how I want it to work, part of me has thought, like, maybe I should adapt to the kayak. Maybe it might be fun to switch up how I do things. And because I'm a creature of habit. I'm guilty of it. I try to try new things regularly, but when I find something that works, I tend to fall back to it very quickly, right? Like I think that's human nature. We're all kind of creatures of habit. Like me pulling out of my damn carport, right? Like I've got a routine that I do things. But now that I have this bigger trailer that's wider, I didn't allow for that, and I clipped the damn carport. But golly, I'm so pissed, y'all. You don't know. I'm getting pissed off just thinking about it. Like, how can I be so stupid? I mean, it's amazing to me how I feel like I'm a fairly bright individual. I've had a fair amount of accomplishments in my life, yet I do some of the dumbest things. It's like, how does this even happen? How have I lived as long as I have lived doing the stupid stuff that I have done? Blows the mind. But anyway, we may end up just really changing things up with this kayak. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to end up doing with it, folks. But I do like it. I enjoy this kayak. If I can keep the hull intact, that'll be something that we learn over time. Yesterday, dropping it off the truck, accident, of course, just the day for it yesterday. But the fact a piece of gravel was able to really, penetrate the hull of this thing, a little concerning. I mean, any of the other kayaks I've had probably wouldn't have even been scratched from such a thing. And this thing gets a puncture wound. So I'm a little concerned long term on this kayak, but in the short term, I want to try to make it work. I want to try to make it work for catfishing. And I want to do it as simple as possible. I don't want to add a bunch of stuff to this. I want this kayak, the perk of this thing is being lightweight. You don't need a trailer for it. You can launch it anywhere. What I don't want to do is add a bunch of stuff to it that's going to add a bunch of weight that's going to require me to make use of a trailer. And I have to use a boat ramp to launch in and all that. And so I don't want to take away the positives of this kayak. I want to keep it as simple as possible. And I did today. We've got an anchor out here. I've got a 10-pound dumbbell that I've tied off here. And so far, so good. Although today we're not. I didn't look at the generation schedule. I don't think they're moving any water. If they are, well, where we're at, we wouldn't be in the current anyway. The current would be to the left of that island over there, going down that way. And the way the wind is blowing right now, it's blowing upstream. So, I don't think we would experience any current right here where we're at, kind of tucked in behind this island. But even if we were, the current isn't offsetting the wind, which is going opposite of it because the kayak is this way. So I don't know how well this kayak's going to do anchored in flow. I wanted to try it out down there in the ocean, and I never did. I ended up doing some other things, and so, which is probably for the best. The current down there is stronger than what I'm going to experience fishing here at home. So it's probably better to try anchoring this thing in current here versus jumping out of the skillet into the fire down there when it's really moving. But I had a good time down there, man. I hated to come back home, especially with as cold as it was. Y'all could have probably talked me into staying a little while longer in Florida, but I come home back, and now after I basically took a vacation once I got home from vacation, really, because I didn't do nothing, man. I've been at the house. When it's been cold, I've been at the house watching the old boob tube. I've been catching up on football. I watched The Penguin on HBO. Amazing show. Absolutely amazing. I think I'll say this about The Penguin. Definitely the best supervillain show or movie. I would clump the shows and movies all into one with the superhero stuff. Best I've ever seen from the supervillain perspective. I really like the Joker. I haven't watched the second Joker. I've heard it's not any good. But the first Joker I really liked. But The Penguin, highly recommend it, folks. Don't click off this video here to go watch it or anything. But definitely put it on your to-watch list. I think you'll enjoy it. It really they really captured what a sociopath, how their mind works. Like a true sociopath, they really captured that on video. You really see it play out with the Penguin. And so I ain't gonna give spoilers and all that of how the show works, but it's really good. And that Colin Farrell, man, he ought to, I don't know what all the Grammys, Emmys, whatever them awards are for movie stars, he should win it for his role. I mean, he nailed it. And the woman in there, too, in The Penguin, Sophia, I think her name was, the mob boss's daughter, the woman that played her nailed it, too. Like, she was a great, I mean, it was just some really good. So anyway, I binge watched that. I got caught up on football because I missed a little bit while I was down there in Florida. And then, folks, and I can't believe I'm saying this because I've talked so much crap about it, I watched some wrestling. And I ain't been into wrestling. I mean, I'm into wrestling. I watch old wrestling matches on YouTube all the time. But the new stuff I've not been into in a long time. It really, I can't put my finger on when it happened, but somewhere between the early 2000s and now, wrestling just became unwatchable. I mean, it was absolutely unwatchable. But Monday Night Raw went to Netflix. And I thought, I'll give it a shot. And I got to say, it was pretty good. I didn't really know who a lot of the people were. I knew CM Punk, I knew John Cena. But I was really surprised. I thought it was it's really different now. I thought it was a good show. Then I watched the Saturday night main events. The last two of those I've watched, and again, I thought this was pretty good. The commentary's pretty good. The wrestling, the production, everything's pretty good. What surprised me the most, y'all, and I've since I've watched Monday Night Raw, I've fallen in love with Liv Morgan. Don't bother telling my girlfriend about it because I've already told her. Liv Morgan ever calls me, drops into my DMs like, you know, I'm calling back because Liv Morgan's amazing. But I was surprised, like, when I was watching wrestling growing up, from a kid up through teenage years, early 20s, women's wrestling was kind of a novelty thing, right? Like it was, I mean, in the late 90s there, it was great as a teenager. You had these bra and panties matches they'd have. They'd strut the women out in these swimsuits. I had the Playboy that Sable was in and the one that China was in. And, you know, that was a big thing back in them days. In the 90s, like the wrestlers, the women wrestlers, they would come out on WWE or WWF back then, and then they'd end up in Playboy, right? But the wrestling matches themselves weren't very good. I mean, them women couldn't really wrestle back in the day. The Sables, the Stacy Keeblers, Miss Kitty, they were great to look at, but the wrestling skills wasn't really good. The only woman that could really wrestle at all back then was China. But she didn't have anybody to wrestle because it was just her. I mean, they put her in some men's matches and stuff, but like, you know, she was born in the wrong generation. If China was born at a point where she could be a wrestler in today's generation, she would be one of the biggest stars, forget in women's wrestling, she would be one of the biggest stars in wrestling, period. But she was born at the wrong time. But these women today, I watched that first Raw, it had Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, who is a goddess. Oh my gosh. I'm like, man, they can actually wrestle. Like, this is a good match. And so I kind of got into it a little bit. So I've watched the other ones up to now, and I got to say, folks, there's still a lot of it I'm fast forwarding through, but it ain't terrible like it used to be. And I can't believe I'm saying that. I didn't think they would ever get my attention again as far as being a wrestling fan. Like, I didn't think I would ever really get back into it. I do think it's a little over the top. I mean, they do these high flying, because I don't know, like these new wrestlers on here, right? Like, I don't know who they are. I don't know their finishing moves. And so I see them. I seen that Penta guy. He's like a Mexican luchador masked guy or whatever. And he does this flip thing into pile driving his opponent into the mat. And you watch that and it's like, holy cow, is that guy even still alive? And then he kicks right out. And I'm like, that's not the finishing move? Like, that's, how is they supposed to kick out of that? Like, how do you top that with a finishing move? And so some of that stuff's it was a little bit over the top for me. I feel like all these fancy moves that people kick out of, and then you see the finishing move, and it's like, that's really what took them out? Like that move? You know, so some of that's a little much for me. And it was a little confusing because I didn't know who these people were, didn't know their finishing moves, and I'm seeing these like crazy acrobatic stunts, and then the opponent kicks out, and it's like, eh. But I will say, it's a better product now than what it was the last time I tried watching it. The women's division is pretty daggone amazing. They may be better than the men. I mean, I watched that, of course, that Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley match there on that first Monday Night Raw where Rhea Ripley won the belt. And then I think it was one of the other Monday Night Raws or maybe the Saturday night main event show where Rhea Ripley wrestled that Nia Jax woman. And she's a big woman. But by gosh, she can wrestle too. She reminds me of kind of like a Vader type wrestler from back in the day. And so I was pretty impressed with it. Overall, it's a big step forward from where it was. Now, I don't know why that is. Maybe because Vince McMahon's kind of been cast off. I don't know what he's up to these days. He had all them lawsuits from them women he was paying off and doing all kinds of vile things with, if you read the lawsuit stuff there about that. But I guess he's completely an outsider with WWE, even though he founded the company and was majority shareholder when it went public for a long time. I guess he's completely out now, and Triple H is running things, and I think he's done a pretty good job. So I'm going to keep watching until such a time that I can't stand it again. But yeah, Liv Morgan, folks, I've decided that that's probably my soulmate. She doesn't know it, but it's probably my soulmate. Rhea Ripley, who I don't find particularly attractive, she's definitely different than what you would have gotten out of wrestling 20, 25 years ago. I don't know if a Rhea Ripley would have made it in the old days of wrestling. Chyna made it. Chyna wasn't attractive back in the day either, but she was so roided up. I mean, she was like, you know, the big bodybuilder type person. Like her look, I guess her persona helped her. I don't know if a Rhea Ripley would have gotten a second look back in the 90s, early 2000s. But in today's world, like, wow, she can wrestle. Like, she's really good. She ought to call herself Diarrhea Ripley because she's the SHIT. But yeah, Chyna, folks, man, Chyna she got a bad deal being born when she was. She's dead now, too, by the way. I think drugs got her, but if she was in modern day times, Chyna would be one of the biggest stars in all of wrestling today. You put her against Rhea Ripley or that Nia Jax, or even her and Liv Morgan. I mean, I think Liv Morgan's, she's got some skills. Aside from just looking hot as hell, like, she's got some wrestling skills, too. Yeah, I'm surprised at myself, folks. I'm surprised at myself, but I gave it a chance. And next thing you know, here I am, sitting through it. I'm curious to see how all these storylines play out now. It's, all wrestling ever was a man's soap opera. It ain't a damn bit different than my grandma watching Days of Our Lives back in the day, which I think is still on TV, if I'm not mistaken. I think Days of Our Lives is still on. Maybe it's online or on the app or something. But I remember watching that as a kid because my great-grandma that kept me and my grandma that kept me, they all watched Days of Our Lives. And so as a kid, I had to watch all about Bo and Hope and John and Marlena. Even when I was in middle school, I remember Marlena being possessed by the devil. You remember that when she was, John Black had to exorcise her there? And you know, like, some of y'all out there will know what I'm talking about too. I guarantee you, if you had a grandma and great-grandma like I did and forced you to watch them soap operas. But them women's soap operas back in the day, and I assume now, I don't know what's going on in Days of Our Lives world, but I'd about be willing to bet most of them characters are probably still on there if they're still alive. I know Stefano DiMera died and John Black died, but I'd about be willing to bet that most of them characters, if they still on there, are still the same things. It's always a love triangle, a drama around two women fighting over a man or something like that, right? Because that's what women care about. Whereas wrestling is about two dudes, they got a problem with each other and they fight out their problems, right? It's just difference in how men and women see the world. And so wrestling has kind of just always been a man's soap opera. It's just over-dramatized. Things that happen on wrestling, it's not really how things happen in real life for the most part. Always exceptions to that, certainly. But for the most part, it's a little over-the-top dramatic. Same thing with the love triangles in the women's soap operas. It's like, yeah, kind of stuff happens from time to time, but a little bit over the top, a little exaggeration, of course. Keep the audience entertained. But yeah, I find myself getting sucked back into the soap opera of wrestling. I'd like to get sucked into reeling in a fish right now. I thought we was off to a pretty good start. And now we've had a little dry spell. We've been bouncing up and down a little bit. The wind, which is supposed to lay down here as the afternoon goes on, is still going enough to make our lines bounce a little bit. We're in this tight channel here in this old creek channel. At least I hope we are. Using the Navionics app, we can't be 100% confident unless you can see it on your graph to where you see the dip in the channel. Like, you can't be 100% confident, but I know Navionics was pretty accurate for here. And when I opened up that app after dropping anchor, like, it looks like we are where we want to be. But I had hoped the way we'd started out, 2 fish right off the bat, that we'd be just getting on some more action here. Never know what to expect in these winter months. It could be, I have more skunk trips in the winter than any other time. I'm not a good wintertime fisherman. But there's also times too in the winter you'll find fish stacked up. And when they are stacked up and you get on that bite, you can catch a bunch of fish. Today may be kind of an in-between day where just fish are going to just periodically maybe work through. Good news though, if you're seeing this, we got more than them 2 fish that we've got. I can't promise we're going to get a bunch of fish. I can't promise that we're going to get big fish. But we got something more than the 2 fish we got. How long have we been at this now? About an hour. I may switch out. I'm going to leave our big bait on. I may not bring up that bait. If it don't get hit, I may not bring it up all afternoon. I don't want to, with us only having one larger bait out, I want it in the water at all times. And if we don't have small fish down there pecking on it and chewing at it, it's going to be in pretty good condition. The water being as cold as it is, it's not going to just bleed out very quickly, especially with it must not really have any current over here. Between the no current flow and the cold water, like, that bait's going to be fine down there for a long period of time. So I'm not worried about it. But our smaller baits, not a lot of blood and oil to be seeping out of them anyway. So I do want to change those out periodically. We may go ahead and switch those out here in a few minutes. Probably pull out another shad out of the cooler. That way we can get that section of meat right behind the head. That's always my favorite as far as a body chunk goes. I don't know why that section always seemed to perform better for me than the tail section. Really, like dorsal fin forward toward the head, I love. Dorsal fin back toward the tail, not so much. I don't know why that is. You would think with the dorsal fin back, you're getting more muscle. Should be more protein for these fish, but I don't know that they're down there really thinking about working out and building muscle and stuff. I think they're probably get the front part of the bait, which is maybe more of a treat to them. I don't know. But either way, just historically speaking, I have done better on the front portion of the bait. And so when we do switch out here in a few minutes, let's go ahead and do that now. Go ahead and just put on another couple pieces. We'll put that front section on though. Get down here and get my hand wet again. Just cut the head off. Well, this knife is dull as all get out, ain't it? Go ahead and cut that gut pocket out. That gut pocket and these shad, it ain't nothing but doo-doo anyway. They're the doo-dooingest fish in the history of the world. I don't think anything on the planet produces more crap than a shad. I mean, look at that. It's just one big glob of poop. Y'all don't want to look at that. Somebody's wife or girlfriend just walked in the room and was like, why is he telling you to look at a blob of crap? All right, let's reel that in and switch it out. Here's one thing about this rod holder setup that is a bit of a challenge is it's farther forward than I would like it to be. That's going to make getting a rod out of the rod holder a little bit more difficult, and also put me at risk of dropping this camera overboard leaning for it. Wouldn't that be something? Reach over to get a rod and end up dumping the camera overboard. Crazier things have happened, that's for sure. Yeah, both of these pieces, I don't know if you can see on camera there, they're both pretty washed out. And they're so small anyway. It's not like they're putting out a lot of scent down there. Which I don't think it takes much for a catfish to be able to find it. But nevertheless, we got plenty of bait, so no reason to be conservative with it. We'll just switch it out every, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour. Put on some fresh pieces there. Dry my hands off again. That wind blowing, I know it's low 50s today, air temperature, right? It's a sunny day, so when the sun is shining on your face or your skin, it feels warm, but the wind blowing across the water creates an air conditioner effect. Cold wind blowing across cold water, it's like an air conditioner blowing. And it makes it hard to dress for kayak fishing, because you obviously want to be warm when you're sitting out here in the air conditioner with this wind blowing. So you need a few layers on. But if you're in either a pedal kayak like we are today, or a paddle kayak where you're having to physically exert yourself to propel it, and you got a bunch of layers on, you end up working up a sweat. And I don't know how long this creek is. It took me about 30 minutes to get out here, so it's probably a mile and a half, 2 miles from where I launched to get out here. So you build up a little momentum, you build up a little heat, you start sweating a little bit. You got all these layers on. Then once you get out here, you get set up and you're setting still, you start to cool off. But now your clothes are damp because you've been sweating the whole way out here. And so it's kind of hard to dress, because you don't, if you come out with clothes that would be comfortable to pedal in and not really work up a sweat, well then when you get out here you're going to be cold because you ain't got enough layers on. And I don't want to be out here, I don't want to bring extra clothes and be trying to put on layers once I get where I'm going. You can do that in a boat, but in a small kayak like this, it's kind of difficult. What is my phone dinging for? Y'all, turn the phone off. We go fishing. I don't know why, y'all. Let me turn that dinger off on there. People gonna drive us crazy. I think it's my email. I don't need no phone calls. I don't need no text messages, and I don't need no damn emails when I'm fishing. I don't need none of it. I like to keep a phone on because I'm at that age where you never know when you're going to get an emergency call of some kind because something's went wrong with family stuff, you know, but I don't want I don't want just random conversating stuff or random emails pestering me. I'm about peopled out after my Florida trip. I got back home. I don't think I left, well, I went to the grocery store. So I was out of food at the house, but beyond that, I don't think I left my house again for like 3 days. Like I completely hibernated to just try to decompress from all of the people that I had been around. And they were good people for the most part. I didn't really have any bad interactions in Florida other than just the traffic on the highways. That's stressful driving down there. But the people I met down there in the Keys and in the Everglades were all really nice people for the most part. I actually did get an email the other day from the couple who had told me about the shark spot I'd met. They were from Georgia and they were living down there now. And they told me about this place. They were always having sharks eat their fish when they were reeling them in. I was like, that sounds perfect. That's where I want to go. And I went there. And that was the only really bad day of fishing I had. Like, I didn't catch anything. And I got to thinking, I'm like, did they set me up? Like, are they secretly Georgia football fans and trying to just pull one over on old Tennessee boy? But I was like, oh, that couldn't be what they done, because they were so nice people. But anyway, they emailed me, and which I don't know how the hell they got my email. They had asked me questions and stuff about YouTube, because we were talking there when I got back to the launch that day. You know, and they was asking where I was from, what I was doing, yada, yada, yada. And I told them I was down there fishing, filming for the YouTube and all that. And they'd ask about my channel and whatnot. I guess maybe that's how they found my email. It's through the YouTube channel or something. But anyway, they emailed me. Wanted to know how I had done on that spot. And of course, I told them I hadn't done worth a damn. Hadn't couldn't catch a cold down there where they sent me. But for the most part, it was a good trip. I learned a lot. Got some more ideas of things I want to do in the future. Probably won't get to go back, though, anymore this year. I'd kind of thought I may go back again in February if the weather didn't turn here. I may go back down, but I think I'll probably wait until next November. Go down there Thanksgiving week again. I'll probably, because even though the weather still sucks here, it's colder than what I want, I need to get back on the catfish grind. Our tournament trail, it starts back up in March, and so I'm going to have to make some trips down to Alabama in advance of it, and so I kind of need to get back in the groove of catfishing here. So I don't know if I'll make it back down to Florida again or not until next Thanksgiving. But it was fun, and I've got some ideas on things to do. I definitely want to focus on the Everglades a little more next year. Assuming I'm still in this kayak, I hope I am. We're going to try the power pole on this kayak. I'll definitely try it out here at home before going down there, but I think that'll make anchoring in that current, especially in that shallow water current, significantly easier. And I've already got the power pole. I'll show you this. Here, I got the power pole base. It's right there, so I can easily put the power pole on and off. Now it's got that power pole scupper right there under my wheels, right there. That's what that pole goes through. I noticed on the way out here, just pedaling, water is sloshing up in there, and it's making like a bonk, bonk, bonk noise the whole time. Every pedal stroke you make, you're getting like a bonk noise. That'll drive me nuts. So I'm going to have to put that scupper plug back in when I'm not using the power pole. And it's pretty, in that particular one, it's got like it's a top and a bottom plate and a screw holds them in together. So it's pretty easy to put on and off. So I'll just put it on when I'm not using the power pole. But I already got that base put up on there, so we'll be ready to go next year there. And how did y'all, look at that. Let me clean y'all off here. How did y'all get water spots on the lens when we had no water splashing? Y'all got to holler at me. Is that, well, I bet it was that fish probably. That fish, maybe that's why more fish ain't been biting. That's probably why. Well, my battery pack, okay, there goes my battery pack. I had to plug a damn thing in. Maybe that's why they ain't been biting. They knew you wasn't gonna be able to see them. I bet we get bit now that we got our camera lens cleaned off. I hope we get bit soon, folks. The whole purpose of bringing that light tackle rod was so that we would get a bunch of action while we wait on the big fish on our big tackle rod. And it started out well. Oh, look right there. By gosh, I told you, all we needed to do was just clean the camera lens off and we were going to get bit. That's all it took. They just wanted you to be able to see them was all. I'll be damned. We couldn't have timed that if we had tried, folks. If I was editing this video, people would swear up and down I staged that. I guarantee it. You can't make this stuff up. My gosh. All right, here's what we're gonna do on this small fish. I bought a tool. This is a de-hooking tool. That fella down there, Chase, that I fished with, he uses these on the saltwater catfish. And we were using this jigs down there. This is obviously a circle hook, a little bit different style hook. So I want to try it out. I don't know if I can do it or not. I remember I got to do it right-handed though. I definitely got to do it right-handed. I couldn't ever do it when I was fishing with him. I couldn't ever get it to work when I was using my left hand. Let me find the hook first off. Okay, there it is. So we're gonna, I gotta think about this a minute. Hold on, folks, I gotta think about it a minute. We grab, pull a downward motion on the hook and the line, and we're gonna, oh, I'll be damned, it worked. Downward motion on the line, and then we spin the fish over and it pops it right out. I'll be damned. It works on the circle hooks too. How about that, folks? And we got our bait back. That's all that fish was waiting on though. He was waiting on you to clean that screen off so y'all could see him. Let me fix that top bait back too. What's up with that hook? There it goes. All right, let's send that back down. We're back in the game, folks. Now we're gonna start catching fish again now that we got a clean screen. I can't believe that de-hooker worked there that good on the circle hooks. And I don't know why I can't use it left-handed. I have to have that de-hooking tool. I was struggling so bad with that thing that day I fished with the guide, but something about pulling down the line with my left hand and flipping it with the right hand, I was able to get them off. And so that one there worked perfectly. That's going to be a big help on them small fish like that don't want to open their mouth. They just want to clamp down. This thing is pretty cheap. It was $13.99, I think. I got it on Amazon. Just type in, I know somebody's going to ask for a link or something. Just go to Amazon, type in fish dehooker, and whatever the cheapest one is on there, that's what I got. But yeah, it was a bit of a gamble. I wasn't sure it was going to work out with the circle hook style hooks, but worked pretty well on that one. We didn't have to get our hands nasty. If I'm going to handle a fish, I want it to be a big fish. Them small ones like that, I wish I could just have my fun reeling them in, and then them just spit the hook when they get up here to the surface after we get a look at them. That's what I wish would happen. And that right there, that Kentucky rig, I don't know if that's something. It's worked out pretty well with that light tackle rod. I don't know if we'll end up sticking with that long term or not. I may, it may be one of them things we play around with the light tackle rig too. It works well, seems like. We haven't had many instances that I can think of. Hell, I can't think of any off the top of my head where that rod's been hit and we ain't ended up hooking the fish. But the smaller the hook, the more likely you are to hook the fish. I mean, you want your hook to be appropriate size for the bait that you're using. Like you want to have some hook exposed. You don't want to use a giant hunk of meat and then have a little 1/0 size hook in that unless you're bridling it or something. Oh, we got a boat coming up behind us here. Old bass boat. He's been out driving 70 miles an hour to places where he ain't catching nothing. Most of these bass fishermen around here right now, I bet you they're struggling if they can't find fish up shallow. Because most all these guys do is beat the banks. Are you kidding me? Dude, 20 feet away from me. He got the hole. Now he's going to cut around right up here in front of us. He could have given me a little bit wider berth right here, but at least he kept going full speed and didn't slow down right here beside us to make the wake even bigger. I do need to get hit with some boat wake anyway, y'all, to see how this kayak responds to it. This one sets so low to the water surface because it's like a paddleboard. I was a little concerned that when you have a big boat go by, a big wake, that you might take water over the side. But so far, it's done pretty good out here. It handled that boat wake fine. I don't know what the hell they're doing. They've went around, I bet you they ain't caught nothing all day long. They froze their ass off driving 70 miles an hour and probably ain't caught a damn thing. Bass fishermen I'm constantly amazed by them. They spend thousands of dollars on electronics. And yet, most of the time when you see somebody bass fishing, they're beating the banks. They're right on the edge of the bank, casting to the shore. Like, what the hell do you need electronics for in that situation? They're on, but they're not using them. The only people you see out in deeper water are the live scopers. And the narrative online is that live scope has killed fishing. That's just, all these big fish are being caught and yada, yada, yada. But I can tell you from firsthand experience using live scope, it ain't as easy as it looks. Like I struggle, I've still got a live scope even though I've took it off my other kayak. But it's harder than it looks. And most of the people that I have known and interacted with who've used live scope, most of them aren't any good with it either. The crappie guys are really good with it. The bass fishermen, there's a handful of people out there. Obviously, the bass tournament pros, they've gotten good with it. Some of the big name bass fishing guides have gotten really good with it. But local Joe Schmo, who just dropped a couple extra $1,000, he was burning a hole in his pocket and put it on his boat, the weekend warrior type guys, they're not doing any good with it. So I don't think it's the end all be all. Now, maybe in certain species of fish, it could have a negative impact. Like crappie, for instance. The crappie guys have gotten really good with it. And I imagine if you took a bunch of the 3+ pound crappie out of a water system, that it could have a handful of fishermen could really impact it in a hurry. But with the bass fishing, if you figure, Buck Perry, I've talked about a lot on this channel. He was a bass fisherman. He's the godfather of structure fishing. I learned a lot about reading contour maps from the Buck Perry book. I learned damn near everything I know about structure fishing from the Buck Perry books. But he was a bass fisherman. Like, that's his methods that he developed. It was for catching bass. Now, I've been able to apply it to catfishing. A lot of other fishermen out there have been able to apply his teachings to other species of fish that they go after, but bass was the primary target species of Buck Perry. And he come to the conclusion, and it's written in his books, that in these reservoirs, the big bass, like the true trophy bass, spent most of their lives at depths of about 35 feet. Now, these fellas, you see them, you come out here on a weekend, especially in the spring, summer months, and there's 1 million boat trailers at every boat ramp, and there are all these bass fishermen all over. You see them throwing at the banks, right? All up and down the river and these creeks, they're all beating the banks. Sometimes you'll see them maybe fishing out a little deeper off of a point or something. I don't see any bass fishermen ever fishing out 35+ feet deep, where Buck Perry believed and proved to be true that is the home of the big bass. Like, that's where they spend the bulk of their time. And so I don't think you can give those guys live scope, and now they got eyes underwater, but if they don't know where to look, and most of them clearly don't, they ain't gonna do a damn bit of good with it. So I'm not a doom and gloom kind of guy when it comes to live scope. I think there's a lot of room for improvement with it. And I think over the coming years, as technology gets better, it will, when the day comes that you can use live scope at faster speeds. Let's say we got a live scope on here and we're running 2 miles an hour down a ledge, and we can see fish in front of us that are laying on bottom. Or you get these catfish that are kind of down in, they got their bellies down in the mud. When live scope will show you those fish partially down in the mud while you're actively moving, that's when there's potential to kind of overfish or damage a fishery. But the way it currently is now, where you need those fish, you need some separation between the fish and bottom to be able to determine them. Like, I just don't see it happening, man. Maybe smaller lakes and such, maybe the crappie guys could certainly put a dent in the pot. Of course, the problem with the crappie fishermen, hurting a fishery anyway, it's not the fact that they're catching those fish more frequently with live scope. It's the fact that they're keeping them. catching 3-pound crappie at a more regular interval ain't a big deal. It's the fact that every one they keep goes in the cooler, goes home to the dinner table. And you're pulling out all those fish. If you wasn't pulling them out, if they was just putting them back, then it wouldn't be an issue. They might actually be, if you did that, they'd probably catch on to live scope. They'd probably learn, after a fish had been caught 2 or 3 times, he'd probably learn when he felt that ping from the sonar, trouble's coming. He'd probably learn to identify that as a danger. Might be more difficult to catch. But the problem is, as soon as they catch one of them 3-pound crappie, they're gone. Put them in the live well, put them in the cooler, they're out of the fishery. Bass fishermen, most bass fishermen are catch and release. Now, I've never personally caught a bass that was 35 feet deep, right? Like I'm not fishing, I'm not targeting bass at that depth. So I've never reeled one up from 35 feet. I don't know how they would do with the barotrauma. Like crappie, one of my last trips before I left for Florida, I was running this light tackle rod with the threadfin shad. I caught a crappie. It's a pretty good sized crappie too. But I think it was like, I don't know, 20 feet deep we caught him. And man, he was damn near limp by the time I got up here. Like he was just, it was the barotrauma. They just don't do well. Crappie don't do well being reeled up from deeper depths. I caught some crappie with the live scope, 40 feet deep. And again, you bring them up, you might as well throw them in the cooler because you've killed them. I don't know about bass. Catfish do really well, as long as you take your time bringing them up. And even like we're doing today, about 40 feet deep, give or take, these catfish we're reeling up, and we reeled them up fairly quickly. They had no problem going back down. Now, when I'm fishing, say on nickajack, and you're fishing 100-foot depths there on those ledges, you got to take your time, or they're not going to go back down. You got to let them decompress. But still, catfish do pretty well. I don't know about the bass. But as long as you didn't have any barotrauma issues and people were releasing them fairly quickly, I don't think you have any issues, even though they'd be more frequently caught, in theory, with the live scope. The biggest problem that hurts the bass fishermen is themselves, the tournaments. They catch a fish, stick it in a cramped live well all day long, running up and down the lake 70 miles an hour, sloshing that thing around in there, take him out of the water for a long time, putting him through the stress of going through the weigh-in, and then he gets dumped out miles away from where he was caught. And they've done studies on that. Our wildlife biologists here in Tennessee have done studies on it. The mortality rate is incredibly high. It was like, memory serves me, 80% of bass that are caught in a tournament in water temps over 80 degrees die within 3 days. So yeah, they'll be alive when they go to the weigh-in. They're still flapping their gills, they're kicking around, but they let them go and they die. I don't know if it's the stress, the environment change, it's the lactic acid buildup, but they end up dying within a few days. 80% of them in water temps over 80 degrees. And when are most bass tournaments happening? In the summer months. That's when there's a tournament every night of the week at one of these ramps, multiple tournaments going on every weekend. Like that's prime time bass fishing seasons all summer long when the water temperatures are the hottest. So they're their own worst enemy, I think, as far as big bass goes. But at the same time I say that, I don't think, I would be willing to bet that most of the big bass, and when I say big bass, that's relatively speaking, right? Like a big bass here in Tennessee is not going to be a big bass in Texas. Like if somebody catches a 7-pounder here where I live, that's a wall hanger. Like that's a trophy. And you go somewhere like Florida or Texas, California, people ain't gonna bat an eye at a 7-pounder. Like you need to be double digits to even get attention. But I would be willing to bet that most of the big fish here, let's say 7 pounds and bigger, most of them, if they truly do, like Buck Perry says, spend most of their life at depths 35 feet deep on average. Yes, they're going to move up shallower, perfect conditions. They're going to move up shallow to spawn. But the bulk of their life is spent out on deeper structure. I'd be willing to bet most of these bass in here have never seen a lure before. Because I'm just making up a number here. This is just a random pulling this number out of my butt, but I bet I'm not off by very much. Right there's a bird right there swooping down. It's one of them little white birds. The others are up there by that island. But ain't, other than that one, none of them's been flying around trying to eat. But I would be willing to bet 99% of bass fishermen, and again, I have no statistics to back this up. This is just me pulling a number out of my butt here, but I bet I'm not far off. I would be willing to bet 99% of bass fishermen spend their time, hold on, our shad. Our shad, something's after our shad over here, a whole shad. I think he still got it, folks. He does still have it. Okay, our whole shad got eat. Now let me tighten down our drag a little bit now that we're in the fight. I just didn't want him taking a bunch of, he didn't hit it hard though. He didn't hit it super hard. That's exciting, folks, though. The big bait gets eat. All right. The big bait got eat without ripping the rod holder off. Progress, folks. Let's see what we got here. It's a pretty good sized fish. Fun sizer. Biggest one of the day for sure. I'll take that. He got the front hook, it looks like. All right. We'll give this a little front camera time here. Let me get the glove. What'd y'all do with my glove? Y'all hid that damn glove from there. It is. Okay, Mr. Blue Cat. He still ain't fighting very hard. That was a pretty weak fight overall. For as big as he is, he really just didn't impress me much. Let's try to land. He's the biggest catfish I have caught, though, in this kayak. This is I need to be like some of them YouTubers. Rod goes down, new PB caught. Something like that. Definitely not anywhere close to a PB overall, but for this kayak, biggest one so far. We're going to hook a monster in this thing. Come here, fish. Let me get you. I can't get a hold of it. There he is. Now, look at that. That's one of the things I really love about this kayak. See how easy it was to pull him up on here? He's wanting to flop now, but because it's set so low, you just kind of got to get their head up and just slide them right over. I didn't even have to get up out of my seat for that. Let's take that hook. All right. Well, the hook is still good. It didn't get bent up. It did get caught on my pedal drive over there though. Here, I'm gonna leave him sitting there a second. Let's set up our camera mount here, folks. Let me get that. Bear with me a second here. I got my Jimmy rigged camera mount here. Ram ball, selfie stick, zip ties, and a piece of PVC so that I can set y'all up here and get me a picture with my new PB in this kayak. Let me turn that front screen on so I can see what I'm looking at there. Of course, we got the sun behind us. That's okay. All right, folks. Nice. Another fat cat here. I mean, he's been eating good to have that much weight on him, and I'm not seeing, at least on this side or that side, doesn't have a lot of mud on him. So I don't think he's been down there like hunkered down. I think these fish are up and about. I'll tell you what, he's cold though. Just having my hands on him, he's cold. All right, you ready to go home, Blue Kitty? Thanks for being the new PB. We're gonna replace you with the bigger PB at some point very soon though. All right, let's get him out of here. There he goes. All right, y'all, I'll fist pump that. Let's put another whole shad on. It's pretty exciting when you've got a bigger bait on. Now, granted, these shad 7-8 inches, right? Like they're not massively. It's not like at some point when I get some skipjack again or a big sucker, white bass, 14-inch crappie, something like that. Those are going to be certainly much larger baits. But, a whole shad, normally in this situation, I would be cutting a head, cutting a chunk, maybe cutting it in half. So it's definitely a bigger bait than I would typically be using with shad. And so to get it eaten, definitely exciting. The setup there we had worked good. Let me pull this bag out so I can see better. Like I said, I split these shad up. And another bag at home in the fridge. Let's get that one. Looks like pretty good size. I put them in 2 bags because that cooler that I've got here on this kayak is kind of small. And if I'd put all them shad in 1 bag or tried to cram them in there, I wouldn't have been able to properly ice them. I wanted to make sure that they were properly cold. Yeah, let's run this thing. Run that front one out the front right there. He got that last one got the front. He didn't get the back hook at all. Run through the tail that way. Get them scales off there. I don't like that. Let me come through at an angle. There we go. Better. Okay. Let's just send this back down. Let me loosen my drag a little bit again. All right. Down it goes, folks. Nice. All right. Well, now we've got both rods hit. What is that? 4 fish now total today. Where are we at on time? A little over an hour and a half in. 4 fish. That's pretty good so far. I mean, we've not set the world on fire with size or numbers, but still, I'm not displeased with how things have gone so far today, folks. I'm not. I come out here with just no real expectations, just trying to piece together the puzzle. And, I wasn't sure with yesterday when I Went and looking for bait there in them first 2 creeks by the dam, and just didn't see anything going on. I wasn't sure that coming to a different creek today would make a lot of difference, but I did get them gizzard shad in a creek on Loudon yesterday, so I thought it's probably just dependent on the individual creek. But with the sky, I mean, clear skies, sunny weather, like I'm thinking maybe you get some movement today. And clearly you're getting a little bit for the fish that we've got. I mean, they're not out here for no good reason. Like, they're on the move, they're coming through or coming out. Could we do better if we were off the bottom of the drop? Maybe. But my best guess would be that if bait had been pulled out of this creek, they would be up here at the top of the drop. And I wanted to be preferably under the bait, but near the bait. And we just, without a graph, we just have no way of knowing. But at the same time too, I don't want to be reliant on a graph. It's like I talked about that a little bit in a recent video too. It's like I want this stuff. I want the gadgets. I want the latest and greatest, right? But I don't want to ever become dependent upon it. And the only way to not become dependent upon it is to get out and fish without it. And use your intuition, use your knowledge, use your experience. And I think that helps build confidence. You know, you can, like we was talking about with the bass fishermen and the live scopers and stuff, like, just because you have all the technology, it don't mean you're going to be any good with it. It don't mean that it's going to help you catch fish. But what will help you catch fish is putting your baits on good structure for long periods of time. Like, there's never a bad time to fish a creek mouth, ever. I don't care what the conditions are today, tomorrow, a month from now, 6 months from now. You could come out here to this creek mouth and have a reasonable chance of catching a fish. And that's true here. That's true with every creek up and down through here on the Tennessee River. You can do the same thing on a deep point. You can do the same thing on your humps and your main channel ledges. Like, there's never a bad time to fish deep structure. And so over the course of time and your experience, you're going to learn which types of structures, which depths work better. Certain areas of the river will be better certain times of the year. That comes with experience. But if you keep things simple, you can pick a spot and have a reasonable expectation of catching fish year-round regardless of conditions. And a place like this is, you know, creek mouth. It's got some depth to it. It's a long creek. It's got a clearly defined channel leading out to the old river channel. That's the most important thing that I could, as far as pieces of advice I could give you when choosing a particular creek. Because, I mean, you pull up a map. I'm on Watts Bar Reservoir today. This reservoir is 70 miles long. Well, it's longer than that, but like 70 miles of the Tennessee River. From dam to dam, from Fort Loudon Dam to Watts Bar Dam, there's 70 miles of the Tennessee River. There is a lot of creeks that flow into this, right? Like, you've got a lot of creeks, coves, you've got other rivers that come in here, smaller rivers and stuff. How do you choose which ones to fish? The best piece of advice I could give you, 2 pieces of advice. One, I want to fish creeks that are clearly defined. And what I mean by that is, when you take your electronics, which we don't have today, but let's say you have just a basic 2D graph, you know, just a little $100, $200 unit. Don't even have to have GPS on it. You just need something to show you the depth. When you run across that creek channel, what you want to be able to see is the old creek bed. You want to be going along, you want to see the dip, and you want to see yourself come back up out of it. That tells me that there is an old creek bed that's still there. Some of the real shallow creeks, back in the day, they're gone now. They've silted in with the current and, you know, the mud and all that. Like, there's nothing there. Like, you can't see them on the graph. Now, maybe the bottom composition is different. Maybe that'll get fish moving through there. But the creeks I do the best in have a clearly defined channel. It's almost like it's an ambush, I almost think. Like, when you've got that drop, right? Like, you go out, you drop down into the creek bed, and you come up. Like, bait fish and stuff that may be kind of flirting around on the outside edge of that channel, as them catfish come through along the bottom, then bait fish come over the top, they can ambush them. It's like an ambush type spot. So that's thing number one. I want to see that old original channel still exist. The other thing that I would say is I want some depth at the mouth. Hold on, we got a fish right here on this light tackle rod. He took it over pretty good right there. We got some fish maybe working through again here, folks. Just got rid of the big one. Now we got another little small one here. This fish is interrupting my sermon. I was about to drop some knowledge. May not be helpful to you, but I believe it to be true, so it's been helpful to me. I will say, adding this spinning rod here, this is just an old ugly stick inshore I had got for my Florida trip when I went in November. I kind of like having this thing. I mean, it's appropriate size for these smaller cats. It makes them a lot more fun than catching them on my heavier tackle. Now, if we hook into a monster on this thing, it's going to take all day. But these smaller cats on the lighter rods are definitely more enjoyable to catch. Listen here, I maybe should have brought up a little slower. I heard him burping a little bit, but he's still able to go back down. You want to use our de-hooker tool on him. He may be a little big for the de-hooker tool. He's got a belly on him. These fish are, man, they're fat, buddy. I think this one's probably a little too big for the de-hooker. Open up. I gotta be careful with this second hook. I don't want to hook myself while he flops around. Won't you behave and open up? There. Was that so hard? Uh-huh. Let me get my pliers on you. I can't get that hook out. Lord knows my fishing partners here ain't going to help me unhook you. They don't want to get their hands cold and wet. Now I can't get my pliers apart. Them damn I got to hit them things with some WD-40. Get the rod out the way. Yeah, look at the belly on that thing, man. Another fat one. Get out of here. Get on. There it goes. All right. Let's see, where are we at on time? Should we switch out our baits again? Let's switch out our baits again while we've got this thing reeled up here. It's probably time to do so. While we got it here, it's a convenient time to do it. And then I'm going to finish my sermon. Okay. We'll switch out this knife too. Hopefully this one's a little better. There we go. I need to move this cutting board out of the way too when we're when we're done. That way I'll have a place to land another big fish. I had to put that other one right on top of it. Okay. Yeah, y'all, we're getting some action today. This is nice. Again, I didn't know what to expect. Just hoping for the best, you know. This creek's definitely got more life in it than what I saw yesterday on the graph there at the first places I went. Unless them fish yesterday was just down in the mud. Possible, but I didn't see the bait. So I don't know what would have held them there. Even though the birds wasn't flying today. Now here we go again. See, you got all these baits on there. Even though the birds wasn't flying when I got out here, I do see them up there on that island. So they're at least in this area. So even though they're laying right now, they're going to eat at some point, assuming the bait comes up. I don't know what percentage of their diet is made up by shad, but all winter long you see them flying around everywhere out here in these creeks and stuff. All right, let me dry my hands off again, and I'm going to finish telling you what I was trying to tell you before. So anyway, 2 pieces of advice as far as choosing creeks, creek mouths specifically. Like I said, number 1, the biggest piece of advice, this is more important than the next part, is just finding that old creek channel. If you don't have the old creek channel, you're not going to do nearly as good. But I do believe that fish use the creek beds to travel up, specifically when coming out of the main channel into one of these creeks. And once they get up in there, who the hell knows where they're going to go? They're going to chase bait. They might be along the shoreline under the docks, following random schools of shad, who knows? But to get in and out of here, they're going to follow that path. So that's number 1, find the path. Number 2, find a path with some depth. And, you know, a lot of these creeks, you come in, they're real shallow. They're real shallow, then maybe they drop off to what's now a deeper flat. I don't like those as much as the creek channels that have some depth and drop off to the main river channel. And when I say depth, I'm talking 25, 30 feet minimum. 25 to 40 feet deep at the creek mouth. And I like for that creek mouth, like where we're at today, to drop off to the main channel. Not off to a flat, which runs out a few hundred yards, to the main channel, but into the actual, now I ain't saying you can't catch them. There's some creeks I use that do drop off to a flat. What's now a deep flat anyway. But I do better, more consistently, with creeks that run all the way out to the main channel. And I'll pull it up here on my phone if I can. Plus, with that big fish spinning us around like he did, which was a lot of fun, and one of the reasons why I want to catch big fish in this kayak so bad. Yeah, so right here, and I hope you can see this crap on my screen, but that creek bed, you know, again, winds way back in there, comes around, comes out this way, loops around, and then dumps out right here to our left into the main channel. You can see up here on this island, there's that point that comes out. There's a sharper point that comes here. I don't know what them fish marks are. That ain't me. That's just somebody else there on Navionics. But you've got a point here that comes out, and then it kind of levels off here, and then you have the drop off to get down in that creek. And so places like this, you rarely find a big creek system like this that runs all the way out the main channel that's not going to have some fish on that creek mouth at some point in time. Like if you put in enough hours to it, you're going to catch something just about any hour or any time of year, you know. It's just, it's good places to fish. So that would be the two pieces of advice, if you're new to catfishing, new to reading maps, whatever, look for places like that. Now, if you're in a situation where you don't have a graph and you can't really confirm one way or the other, I mean, you do need a graph to, like, you can take my word for it out here today that this creek channel exists. Like, you can still find the old creek channel. I know it to be true because I fished out here before in a kayak with a graph. But if you are somebody, like, if you don't have a graph and all you have to go by is these map cards, these Navionics and stuff on your phone and on a computer, well, you're not going to really know. But the good thing is, I know, a lot of you out there, if you're new to fishing, you may not have a lot of gear just yet, but graphs are pretty cheap, especially if you buy them around Christmas, Black Friday sale, and then in the summertime, the Father's Day sale. You can find a graph really cheap. Bass Pro, Cabela's, Amazon, places like that. Like, you'll get on some good deals, right? And you don't need a $2,000 live scope system to help you find them damn creek channels. Like a basic black and white screen, 4-inch, 5-inch, you can buy them things for $100. You can probably get them cheaper than that if you get like an older model on eBay or something, or get on Craigslist or Marketplace, whatever. You can probably find a good deal doing that. But if you can just see the depth, you can use that phone app, or, I use the Navionic. You can use whatever the hell app you want. I'm sure there's other ones. And get out there and look and find it. And just see if it is or it ain't. Now, it's a big tool. It's a useful tool to have. Is it 100% necessary? No. You could come out and do what we've done today. Use the phone, anchor down, and hope for the best. The good thing with catfish is, the old saying, horseshoes and hand grenades, you're close enough. Well, with catfish, their ability to pick up on the scent of your bait is pretty good. Like, if you're a little bit off, it's not always the end of the world, especially if they're active. And when you're fishing a place like this, I'm expecting fish to be active when they work through. Like, when these fish come up to the top of this drop, I'm expecting them to do so because they're moving up in here to feed, right? Or if they're coming back out of this creek, they're active because they've been eating and they're working their way back out. And here we have an easy meal in their face. So they're going to be more likely to find your bait because they're actively on the move. And even a day where you don't have any current flow, just us dropping our baits down, there's some scent going off of it the whole way down as it falls. That's going to disperse out in this area. When we throw out our other pieces of bait there, when I switched out that bait, like, they're going to fall down. Scent is coming off them. Out here today, for instance, the wind, which still hasn't really slacked off, in fact, I think it's picking up a little bit, but it's pushing up into this creek, right? So as our baits go down, the blood and the oils that come off, it's kind of getting pushed by the wind this direction. So those fish that are actively swimming, they can lock in on that pretty easily. And so if you can get close, and out here, like I said, Navionics is pretty accurate. You go somewhere like the Ohio River, it's off by a mile. Like, it ought to be criminal for them to sell Navionics on the Ohio River. It's useless. But out here, it's pretty accurate. So if you're fishing somewhere and you happen to know it's accurate, which you can talk to other people, get online and stuff and ask questions of how accurate it is for certain places, then you can get close enough without the use of electronics. But I mean, if you're in a bigger kayak, if you're in a boat especially, you're already carrying batteries and stuff, not a big deal to install a graph. I just don't want to do it on this. I may end up doing it at some point on this, but I really want to keep this basic. I really want to keep this as simple as possible. And I just don't want the hassle, man. I don't want the hassle of wires, batteries. I will have a battery, obviously, when I put the power pole on here for the shark trips in the future, but that's one minor inconvenience for something that's going to greatly help me. Having that power pole, I think, will be huge when fishing them flats and down there in the Everglades and stuff in the ocean. Like, I think that will be, the benefit will outweigh the hassle. Me putting a graph on here, today especially, how we're fishing, the hassle would outweigh the benefit. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it. Plus, again, I don't want to have to be reliant on it. Now, you could say, well, Justin, you are still kind of reliant. I mean, hell, you need that damn app on your phone to tell you where you're at. And there's some truth to that, yeah. Because like this creek instance from here, for instance, I mean, when the reservoir was made and the water come up, if you just looked out here and said, where's the creek mouth? Most people would probably set up somewhere in the middle there, from the edge of that island there over to the land, right? Well, look how far off you would be from what the original creek. Now, you might be able to get in the creek channel possibly if you just happen to get lucky there with where you dropped anchor, but you would be really far off from the creek mouth. And so, yeah, I am kind of reliant, I guess, a little bit. I'm reliant on the map. Like, I need the contour map. That's important to me. That's the most important thing to me. Knowing where I'm at on a particular structure is that's really all the graph is for, is just to confirm that I am where I think I am. So I am kind of reliant on technology to an extent. Now, if you're fishing a smaller river or reservoir, and you can visually see with your eyes a creek mouth or something like that, well, then you don't necessarily need that because you can visually see it. But again, out here, you just take a look. If you didn't know, if somebody had never been here before and I said, okay, this is a creek, tell me where the creek mouth is, well, they're probably going to pick where the land ends. But they would be off by, I don't know, a few hundred yards. So that's, you know, and that's pretty big. I mean, you can be off by a little bit and active fish will still find you because of the scent dispersion. But if you're off by a few hundred yards potentially, fish could be really active and just not know you're there. Yeah, if I could give you pieces of advice though, as far as setting up like we're doing today, find creeks that still have a defined channel and pick creek mouths that's got some depth to them, 25 to 40 feet deep. That's creeks that lead directly out to the main river channel. You stick with those. Like if you're fishing a new body of water or if you're brand new to catfishing, if you just stuck with those and fished them year round, I ain't saying necessarily fish the same creek mouth year round, but just pick you out. Like I said here, I'm on Watts Bar today. There's 70 miles of the Tennessee River from dam to dam. Hundreds of creeks. Like you could take your pick. But go through the map. You see one that meets those criteria. Of course, in the map, you're not going to know necessarily if the old creek channel still exists. But what you can do on the map before you ever get on the water is say, okay, does the creek have some size and depth to it? And does it lead directly out to the main channel? If it does, put a little star or circle it. Then once you get out on the water, then you can start eliminating once you get out there. But hell, you can pick out 20, 30 spots to fish before you ever leave the house. And I guarantee you, if you're somebody, you know, maybe you got a full-time job, family commitments, you can't fish, but 2 or 3 days a month maybe. Let's say you average 3 days a month over the course of the year. That's 36 trips. You fish 36 trips at places like I've described, you're going to catch some fish, folks. You ain't going to get skunked 36 times. You might get skunked on an individual day. It happens. It happens to me. But you're not going to have it happen 36 times. Like, you're going to catch some fish. But and over time too, when you get out there and you get more experience, you're going to find places that you have confidence. I like creek mouths because I have a lot of confidence in them. I like deep points because I have a lot of confidence in them. If you told me I could only fish one structure or two structures the rest of my life, I would tell you creek mouths or deep points. One of the two. Like, that's, you know, I can do that anywhere. That's not, I mean, I've done real well for myself in these tournaments, fishing random places all over different bodies of water because I can open up a map and pick out places like I've described. So it travels well is what I'm getting at. Like, it's not just dependent upon you fishing where I'm at today. Like, it's that kind of knowledge travels different bodies of water, different states, etc. So you can apply that kind of stuff anywhere. A fish is a fish is a fish. They all use structure in the same ways, just different bodies of water. But over the course of time, you try out different structures, different techniques, etc. You're going to find comfort zones, places that you just have confidence in. And, you know, humans being creatures of habit, like we talked about, you'll probably find your way back to fishing those type of places more frequently, especially when you're in situations like we are today where maybe you haven't fished in a few weeks, or you've had a major weather change or something like that. You're going to revert back to what you know. And out here today, it's worked out. First time, well, I can't say it's the first time on the water since I got back, because I did go out yesterday, 2 different bodies of water yesterday, in our efforts to get bait. But first time in 3 weeks now dropping baits down for catfish, and here we are. We're catching some fish. I'd like to catch more, and I'd like to catch bigger, and I'd like for this wind to slack off a little bit. It was supposed to die down, folks. It's ramping up. Thankfully, with the anchor, physical anchor today, it's blowing into my back right now. When I have my motor and the spot lock, like if we had the motor and the spot lock today, it would face us into the wind right now. It'd be blowing into my face and it would feel much colder. This is actually, it's cool out here, but it's tolerable. Tolerable right now because it's blowing in my back and I got my hood up. But it is getting a little bit more choppy with the wind blowing, and so I'm kind of happy that the kayak's doing as well as it is anchored. Because again, I've got a boat cleat attached right here. You can't put an anchor trolley on this kayak because you can't drill into the hole. So there's no way to attach a trolley. But I got that boat cleat right there. And so your anchor rope kind of pulls down the side of the kayak right here, right? And so it makes it, when you got boat wake or chop, more likely to come over. And certainly if we had current, especially the kind of current I was dealing with down in the ocean, you run the risk of maybe pulling it over a little too far and getting yourself sideways in it. That's where the danger comes in. But out here today with no current, it's not going to be a problem. But I was curious to see what it would be like when a boat went by. And we tolerated that well, and now with it getting a little bit choppier than I would like, just from a comfort standpoint, it's handling it well. So far so good with it. That's one of the big things with me catfishing out of this kayak, because I got to have a way to anchor it. The rod holder situation, like if this up here, if this setup doesn't work out, we have another option. It's not an option I want to do, but we have another option. I could run a 2x4 to my seat here and connect it to the seat with U-bolts and then run my rod holders to the 2x4 that way. That would be the most secure way to do it. I don't want to do that, but we could do it. You might say, Justin, why don't you want to do that if that's the most secure way? Well, having our rods in front of us like we do, you can see the takedowns. When a fish hits and takes a rod over, you get to see that rod double over. If I got the rods here on my seat, they're going to be beside me. It's not going to be in frame on the camera. Yeah, we got to put on a show here too, folks. So it ain't just about most secure way to mount them. It's also about most secure way we can mount them and them still be seen. So there's that. The other thing, though, that would be difficult if we had it attached to our seat is the fact that I can't have an anchor trolley on this kayak. It would just move our rods closer to the anchor rope, which would be more likely to have tangles in the rope and all that. And we will have some. Okay, we will. We always have them. You know what I mean? Like every time I use an anchor rope, not every time, but every 4 or 5 trips, we're going to get a fish wrapped up in the anchor rope. It's just, that's the way it goes. We're actually moving right now. I think this wind is moving us. Look at my line over there. It looks like it's pulling, ain't it? That wind's blown us all. I just got a little, I used a lightweight anchor. That way if we got rocked in a big boat wake, it would hopefully bounce up, you know what I mean? Yeah, we've shifted. We're here now. We did shift a little bit. Give me a second here, folks. I'm gonna check that wind finder. Wind finder may have let us down again. Yeah, it's supposed to slack off, but it ain't. Well, we'll sit here a minute. We're still kind of on the edge of where I want to be. We'll sit here and see what happens, and maybe if this wind, it seems like it's shifted, and maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe we're just more exposed to it now. It was blowing kind of this way, and now it's blowing, it's got us facing the opposite shoreline over here. Now that I'm comfortable with what we've experienced today anchoring this thing, I'll bring out that little bit heavier dumbbell. That's a 10-pound that I got on right here, which is okay in calm water. Not so good if you got current or wind. What I normally use is a 15-pound, and that holds pretty good regardless. So that's what we'll end up using next time out here, which will probably be tomorrow. I think based on the number of fish we've got out here at this creek mouth day, I think I'll probably, we're not gonna come back here tomorrow unless we just really tear them up at some point this afternoon here. We'll hit somewhere else tomorrow, but I think the plan's gonna be to anchor again. I think at some point in the next few days, as it gets warmer, them backwaters are going to heat up a little more. The bait fish are going to move, and the cats are going to be back up in there. But what I saw coming out today, what I saw on the screen there yesterday when I went out for bait, like, I think creek mouths and maybe main channel is the play right now. We're rocking right here though, folks. I guess we're just more exposed. That's the only thing I can figure is when the wind shifted, maybe it didn't pick up. Maybe we were just kind of better shielded than when it was blowing the other way. Of course, I don't know. I don't think so because it would have been blowing up the river. Either way, it's moved us farther away from where I want to be. One thing we might could do with how it's blowing now. So again, it's you can see it's blowing, it's got us facing this way toward the bank. It's blowing this way. One thing we might could do is go up there on the other side of that island and find, and you can see, you may not be able to see it so far away, there's some of them white birds up there flying around. And the whole flock of them's over there on the left. Find the old creek bed that's up there, get in it, and anchor down, and then we'd be shielded from the wind if it keeps blowing this way. With that island right there would block most of it. And that would give us an opportunity to maybe stay better positioned. I wanted to be out here right on the top of this drop, so when them fish, as soon as they come up, boom, they got a meal. Let's give it a few more minutes right here and see what happens. The wind's definitely switched directions though, because we were facing that way. Old Mother Nature's always wanting to play games with you, ain't she? That's one thing that's consistent about Mother Nature. Is here in East Tennessee in the wintertime, or especially when you get on into early spring, March, April, if you got a warm day, the wind's gonna crank, man. It's gonna blow. But normally, it blows early, or in the mornings it's calm, and then it blows all afternoon. Today, the forecast was for 20 plus mile an hour winds this morning, and by lunchtime it was going to be slacking off. And it was tolerable when we first got out here. It'd be tolerable now if it would just slack off just a little bit, so we didn't get pulled off anchor. We may end up going up there though. We'd still be in the creek, and I'm seeing them birds more so, some of them out there, not many of them, but there's a few flying around up in that area, which tells me there's probably more bait up there. Them birds, their vision must be incredible because they hover around in the sky, and you'll see them dive down and hit them shad. And that's usually a good sign. When you see them birds, that's a good sign there's a school of bait there. Because they're not just doing that for no good reason, they're eating. And if you can find them big schools of shad, and sometimes in the winter months, you'll have massive schools. That's why I went where I went yesterday looking for bait. Because oftentimes there'll be schools of bait that'll be 100 yards long. They just wasn't there yesterday. I don't know where that's at, but they wasn't there. All right, I think let me pull out my phone again and pull up the app. I'm gonna try to get us positioned here again where we was. Let me try to get us positioned where we was here, folks, and then if we get blown off a second time, then we'll go up here and get out of the wind a little bit. Let's reel up here a second and drop this anchor back down. I'm gonna have way more confidence if we're where I want us to be. I think we're just too far over right now to have a realistic chance of. Now, here's where it might get a little sketchy. Is pulling this, when you pull the anchor up, you pull the side of the kayak down, and on this kayak, again, there's not a lot of sidewall to work with. Keep water from coming over. All right, I'm not going to pull the anchor all the way up. I don't need to. I just need to get it up off bottom to where I can get over here and get my phone back open. Bear with me here, folks. Let's just see. We'll just go back this way. Again, I just want us somewhere in this area right off the drop. Just when they come up on that drop right there over the top, I want them running into us. So let's just work back this way. And this thing, I mean, it's, like I said, out here, accurate. If you're using this some other places, maybe not so much. We'll try this one more time, and if we can't stay anchored down, we'll just go up here on the other side of this island. I'm gonna try to anchor us this time. Here we go. Y'all wave a bass boat. That's them same fellas right there. I guarantee you wherever they went, they didn't catch a daggone thing. All right, so we're kind of in the creek channel now. I'm gonna go up just a little bit further. That way, if we slide off again, we're hopefully just gonna come to a rest where we want to be. All right. I'll let the rope go. Let's see where we come to rest at here in a minute. Let the wind blow us back around here. Hopefully I didn't run us off too deep to where my anchor didn't catch it all. That would be something. Yeah, it's spinning us around here now. It's caught good. Don't know if it's going to hold, but we'll try it. All right, so far so good. Let's put the phone up and put the baits back down. Down it goes. Let's try it again, folks. I hope this is not a mighty. Are we already on the move? Because this bait's, I dropped it down and it's over here behind us. Let's try that again. Let's see. I don't feel it. It don't look like we're moving up there. I'm watching the ground up here beside us on that island. It don't look like we're moving. We have to be moving though, because look where my line is. My line's up under the kayak. All right. Well, folks, y'all gonna have to bear with me. This is the downside of an unedited video, is when crap goes wrong, which it oftentimes does. All right. Let's go up here and just anchor it. This ain't gonna hold. Again, this is just a little dumbbell, easy to work with in a kayak. Most situations pretty good, but out here today with this much wind that's blowing right now. Blame the weather, man. All right. We'll go up here, get on the back side of this island, get out of the wind. We'll find the creek channel again. Go up here where some of these birds are flying around. This, I mean, if I had brought a heavier dumbbell, we'd have been fine out here. The chop's not so much that you can't work with it. It is little, when you're trying to do suspend baits, or today, where you kind of got the baits there near bottom, and you got choppy conditions, your baits are bouncing up and down. I don't like that. I want those baits down there kind of, I don't mind the kayak moving a little bit. That's okay, because I mean, especially if your bait's like, we got them dragon sinkers on. As your kayak spins, they're kicking up dust or dirt down there, right? It's causing a little bit of a dust cloud. That just helps draw attention to your bait. What I don't want though is the up and down bouncing. That's just not natural. You don't see a bait fish, whether it's dead or dying, you don't see it doing this down there, right? It's not bouncing up and down. And that's where a little bit choppier water kind of messes with your suspend fishing. It's more of a calm water type technique. Doable out here with the chop we have if we could keep ourselves anchored, but just ain't gonna happen. You watch and see though. We'll waste our time making this run up here and the wind will stop. Just weird that it's supposed to die down, but it's picking up. But at least with it blowing the direction it is, it'll be easy for us to hide from it, because this island right here, it's plenty big enough to block it, or at least block it enough to where we're not going to have an issue with it. Just disruptive to the video and disruptive to my day. After yesterday though, Lord, man, me wrecking the damn trailer on my carport, puncturing a hole in this thing. I put some silicone in there on this thing, plugged it, but still, yesterday was I had a dark cloud over me yesterday for some reason. I don't know what caused it, but it was just a voodoo magic or something yesterday. Fortunately, I know a welder. My friend Mark there, Deuce's Wild Fishing Charters, his son is a welder. So he fixed my last trailer when I messed it up. I dropped it off is that my pedal squeaking? It is. Y'all need WD-40 them pedals. It's getting worse. What the hell? Maybe it's the cutting board? It's not the cutting board. I'm gonna need y'all WD-40 that. Them things, my chain got rust all over it. I probably need to just have this thing broken down and serviced. Get the parts replaced, get it rebuilt. And it's damn near, I bought this kayak used, but the pedal drive was barely used because the kayak had been barely used. But it don't take long in salt water for everything to get corroded. And I did a lousy job my first few days in Florida, staying at that hotel and didn't have water hose. So I was just taking a gallon jug of water and pouring over everything. I did a lousy job. Yeah, we're already getting out of the wind here. I can tell a big difference already. We'll just try it on up here though. We'll get in the creek channel up here and see what happens. It'll still have some depth up here for sure. It gets progressively deeper as it works out. I'm gonna go up just a little bit farther in case this wind shifts a little more. We'll still be shielded. Boy, it feels much warmer too. Once I got out of the brunt of that wind, significantly warmer. I've still got this anchor or this dumbbell here halfway down in the water. So I'm towing it, which is slowing me down. It's creating drag and more resistance as I pedal. You might say, well, Justin, why didn't you just bring it all the way up? I probably should have. I was just thinking, well, it's just a short run. Just a couple 100 yards, we'll be out of the wind. It don't take a big object to create a lot of drag on a kayak, especially one as lightweight as this. Those birds flying around back over there, kind of in that little cove, that little pocket. We're going to set up right in here. Get my phone out again. I'm dropping everything else out of my pocket. Okay. Let's see where we're at. Okay. I think we need to be to the left. We'll set that there in the floor for a minute. We got to move to the left to get in this old. I'll show you here once we get over here where I'm going to drop anchor. I'll show you how I'm doing this, what I'm looking at here. But we're to the left of that channel. I mean, to the right of it anyway, I should say. We need to move to the left. Forgive me for not having my lefts and rights straight, folks. If that's the worst thing I screw up today, we'll be all right. We're going to be completely shielded from the wind. I can actually lose my hood here now too. I'll do all this pedaling. I'm going to work up a little bit of a sweat again, just so I can sit here and get cool. Yeah, just a little bit more. Some people say, and I tested this theory a few years ago, but you get a lot of people saying, catfishing, if you don't get bit in a few minutes, pull anchor and move. It's about to get choked. That's fine when you're in a boat, but when you're in a kayak, and I don't care if you got a motorized kayak, you can't just quickly and easily move spots. Like, for no further than we've moved here, look how long this has taken. Now imagine if we were running to another spot a mile away. You lose so much of your fishing time just without baits in the water, just moving spot to spot. It's just not a productive use of your time. If you're going to fish 6 or 8 spots in a day, half of your day is going to be spent without baits in the water. So I don't think it's a good use of your time. I'm going to drop the anchor back down again. Okay. I'm going to tighten this rope up a little bit here too, because we've come up a lot shallower now as we moved up in here. I like a pretty taut rope, which again, it's part of, like if you're using a regular anchor, part of it not catching necessarily is because you want to have more rope out, but I like a taut rope when I'm doing this because with our baits right here under the kayak, I don't want a bunch of loose anchor rope for them to get wrapped up in as they spin us around and whatnot. All right, let me get these back down real quick. Let me get the baits back down, and then we'll show you here on the map how I'm setting up now. Completely calm here where we're at. We're out of the wind. Amazing, you can move such a short distance and have such a big difference in the wind. But the way it's blowing right now, we're right here protected from it on this island. All right, let's get these back down. Yeah, I don't like moving. I did a study on it with myself several years ago now, actually. I just timed myself when I would move spots. Like when I would reel up my baits, start the timer, pull up my anchor, go to the next spot, anchor down, cast my baits out, I'd stop the timer. I was losing so much time over the course of a day, it was ridiculous. And so then in, I think it's 2019, I did that study where instead of trying to fish a bunch of different spots, I fished one spot. I'd go out, I'd anchor down on a spot, and I fished that spot for the duration of my trip. And I had way better results. And I think a big part of that is just because I was wasting so much time without baits in the water. And I ain't telling you how to fish. If you're in a boat, by God, go out and fish as many places you want. But in a kayak, if I go to a spot a mile away and I can pedal 4 miles an hour, which I ain't pedaling 4 miles an hour consistently, I'd be more closer to 3.5 miles an hour. But even if you go 4 miles, you got a motor, you go 4 miles an hour, it takes you 15 minutes to go a mile. Throw in an extra 3 to 5 minutes for reeling your baits up, casting them back out or whatever when you get where you're going. Like, you're losing, every spot you fish, you're losing anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, you know, and it's just, you're going to fish 5 or 6 spots throughout the day. Well, how much time did you lose? Where if you'd picked out one productive spot where fish were going to move through, you just didn't know when, but they were going to move through at some point, and you put in all of that extra time there on that one spot, what happens? And for me, when I did that study on myself in 2019, it just worked out so much better to fish one spot versus trying to pull anchor and move all the time. So anyway, let me show you here on this now. So this creek channel, my gosh, look right here. Look right here. We got something on the shad already. Oh, he just come off too. He just come off. But he was on it. Bait looks good. Look good. I don't like how that back one is. Let me fix it. It's pulled through the bait a little bit. Okay. That's a good sign, folks. Let me get this back down and then I'll show you how we've set up. I like that we're getting hit already though. It's a good sign. I don't know how deep we are here. It should be 30-something feet deep. Get this thing set, okay. Okay, now let's try this again. Let me try showing you again here before another fish rudely interrupts us. So, again, this right here, it's gonna say 46 feet. Our water's down for winter drawdown, so it's not 40, it's probably mid-30s probably right now. But you see the old creek bed, you see it listed there, you can see how it comes through. Now it widens out here. I'd much rather be down here where it's a little bit deeper. The channel's a little bit deeper, but it tightens down right there above the dry. I'd rather be there. But those fish, they come up here, they just gonna follow that old creek. We're hoping to now at least that they're following this old creek bed on the way up into here. We hope. Now, will they before they disperse and go? Who knows? But with the water being down, it is a little bit more choked down through here than what it normally would be. And I'm seeing, of course, there's a big thing of birds right over here. They're just laying. The birds that are flying around kind of back over there toward that other pocket. So assuming that maybe there's more shad over there where they're at flying around, how are fish going to get there? Well, they're probably going to keep following this old creek channel until they run into the bait. That's my hope. And if that's the case, then they got to come through us. So anyway, folks, that's where we're at with it right now. We'll see how it pans out. Again, I'd rather be where we were, but the fact that we just had a bite definitely encouraged. It was another one though. We had a little weight there, but it wasn't. I probably shouldn't have picked up so quick on it. It was another one that just wasn't a violent hit, you know, like that bigger fish that we got earlier. It wasn't a violent takedown. It wasn't a violent fight. It was kind of lethargic, if anything. It's kind of like that bite there, but we'll see what happens. We'll sit here. Seems like we just switched out those smaller baits not too long ago, in my mind anyway. We'll at least give it a little bit more time on those. Maybe switch those out again. Yeah, it's so much better over here, y'all. This ain't where I want to be right now. But from a comfort standpoint, it is. It feels at least 10 degrees warmer on me right now. At least 10 degrees warmer. Just being out of the brunt of that wind. I mean, I've got my hood off right now. Part of that's because I'm still a little warm from the pedal. We didn't go far, but it was more pedal strokes for me because I was pulling that anchor that was still halfway down in the water. It's amazing how something so small can create a lot of drag in a kayak. And the lighter the weight kayak, the more drag it's going to create. Like I've had people will send me these pictures sometimes of these floating fish baskets, basically, right? It's like, oh, you ought to keep your bait in this or whatever, and it'll be like a clothes basket type thing, or a cage with some pool noodle on it. And I've used bait buckets like that before. Like I think there's an old video on my channel where I had a bait bucket and it had holes near the bottom of it, and I'd put it up on the kayak when I was going place to place, and then when I got where I was going, I'd put it in the water. And, you know, that's fine if you're just anchored down, tied off, but you try towing that kind of thing, even if it's got, like if it's like a cage or a basket or something, it's got holes in it, it's still a ton of drag. A ton of drag. You wouldn't, I mean, it's amazing how much it slows you down. And you're already going slow anyway because you're in a kayak. So, for me, I just don't fool with that kind of stuff. I've gotten away from I don't have a desire to have that kind of fish container. Like if I want to use live baits, I'll just bring out my bucket. Take the extra weight on the kayak. Because I'm not ever, even this kayak here has a fairly low weight capacity compared to the other kayaks that I have and that have used. But I'm still nowhere near exceeding the capacity of this thing. So I can have an extra 40 pounds or so, because my bait tank is a 5-gallon bucket that I've made into a bait tank. So 8 pounds per gallon, that's 40 pounds me putting an extra 40 pounds in a kayak, it's not a big deal. It doesn't put me anywhere near capacity for even a smaller kayak like this. So I don't want to have to do the hassle of having one that you're going to put in the kayak for part of the time and then have it off to the side. And because those containers, you know, you don't have, and I ran into this problem when I was using that kind. Like, you got to cut holes on part of the bucket there, right? Because you got to have water flowing in when it's submerged out beside you. But when you pick it up to put it in the kayak, you still got to be able to hold some water to keep your bait alive while you're getting where you're going. And when you do that, you just don't have very much, you don't have much water left in there. And so if you're making a long run somewhere and you got maybe that bait tank's a little overcrowded anyway, your bait oftentimes don't do very good, especially if it's hot out. So I just, you know, to each their own. I got my own way of doing things. It ain't right, it ain't wrong. It's just my way. And, you know, through the years, I've just figured out things that work for me and pieces of gear that I like. And yeah, I want to get better, certainly, and I want to try different things. We may end up trying just some completely different technique in this kayak. And we're trying different rigs here today on this whole shad rod, which I'm feeling better about the rod holder mount on here. I'm feeling much better about it. I didn't know what to expect really coming out here. Well, you know, it could have been a complete flop, but so far so good. The real test will be when we hook into something really big, but don't know if that'll be today or not, but it's coming. At some point we will. I guarantee you we will at some point. Matter of time, folks. We've already got our PB catfish in this kayak today. The bar was low, but by gosh, we got us one today. It's just fun. This kayak's fun. When we have a big fish really take off and give us a good fight, I mean, that one didn't, but when it does, like, we're going to get spun, or even on anchor, like, we're going to get spun around all over. It's going to be great. This is just a fun platform to fish off of. Them sharks down there in the ocean, my gosh, man, when they would tow you, you just hanging on, getting towed around. They'd switch directions, go this way, the front of the kayak, it's just spinning around. Like, that's fun. That's fun to me. Like, that's what I love about kayak fishing. And the smaller the platform, I mean, you don't want it to be so small that it's unsafe, but the smaller the platform you can do it in, the better. The bigger, the more stable the kayak, yeah, it's still fun, but it's not the same kind of fun. Like, it's just not as enjoyable, to me anyway. And this kayak here it's stable enough. Like, I can stand up in it. I can throw the cast net from it. Like, I can do what I want to do from it, but it's not so stable that it takes away from that kayak fishing experience. And because it's so lightweight and the whole design being more like a paddleboard design, when a fish gets you turning, man, you are turning. Like, this thing will turn on a dime anyway, just pedaling it. So when a fish gets you spinning, like, it's just fun. I really hope this kayak works out for me long term. Like, I hope the durability, we'll figure out the rod holder stuff, but and the anchoring stuff, but I hope long-term durability, that's going to be the key, because this ain't a cheap kayak, folks. It's very overpriced for what it is. I think this kayak ought to be half the price that it sells for, which I think it's, you know, I bought this one used. I think it's like $2,900. I think it's $2,900, I think, new, which is, again, double the price it should be. But everything, if it's got a Hobie name tag on it, it's more expensive than it should be. That's just, you're paying for the name, which the name ain't worth crap these days with their reputation. They've really the newest owners of them haven't done them any favors with the reputation. But nevertheless, it's expensive enough that if the durability of the hull doesn't hold up, as much as I like it, it ain't going to be worthwhile to replace ever so often. You put this much money into something, you want it to last for several years and still have some resale value on it when you're done with it. And that's one of the nice things about at least the Hobie brand kayaks up before their reputation got killed by the new owners, was that Hobies held their value. So you could use it a few years, and with inflation and the price increases and stuff, hell, you could about sell your used kayak for what you paid for it when you got it. But the quality has just went down the crapper. And now I'm obviously not paying super close attention to it because I'm not really in the market. But when I do see Hobie Pro Anglers come up for sale, or Hobie Outbacks, they just don't seem to hold the value like they used to. And is that market saturation because there's more of them on the market, more people selling now? Or is it just because the reputation's been tainted? I don't know. And I don't know how that is across the board necessarily. Like I said, I just occasionally, I'm not in the market for a Hobie Pro Angler or Hobie Outbacks. I'm not actively looking. But when I do see one pop up on Marketplace or wherever online, they just seem to be cheaper in relation, they're still not cheap, but cheaper in relation to the current new price compared to what they were in years past. So we'll see. I've had 2 different people tell me that Hobie's on the verge of bankruptcy. And so they may be getting a new owner at some point, and hopefully it'll be somebody that will restore the brand a little bit. I'm not loyal to Hobie by any stretch. This is the 3rd Hobie kayak I've had in my life. I had a Hobie Outback, then I had the Hobie Pro Angler, which I still have the Hobie Pro Angler. I had a 2015 model Outback. I've got a 2017 model Hobie Pro Angler. And honestly, I don't even know what year model this one is. I didn't even ask. And I haven't looked at the serial number to see. They ain't made a damn, I think this kayak come out in 2021 or 2022. They haven't made any changes to it since they've come out with them. It's the same thing, so it really don't matter. But those are the 3 I've had, and it's just, I've owned more Hobie kayaks than any other brand, but I'm not loyal to the company. Like, if something else better by another brand come out, I would be all over it. Just like when the Bonafide come out. Like I thought, now that kayak ended up being a mistake for me. It's a fine kayak, just not for me. But I was all over it, because I'm not beholden to any one brand. Like I have the freedom to switch. But I've owned more Hobies than any other brand. And the 3 that I had, the Outback and the Pro Angler for sure have been really good quality. Time will tell on this. It's held up good so far, but the puncture wound yesterday from it's not like I have a monster truck. It was probably a 3-4 foot drop. It wasn't a big drop to get that puncture. So that's concerning. I'm trying to be gentle with this thing. I'm trying to baby it, but accidents happen. As we learned yesterday on my carport, things go wrong, folks. You're going to drop a kayak. You're going to, get blown up onto the launch when you're coming back in on shore and hit some rocks. Like, things happen. And with a roto-molded kayak, it's not a big deal. Like, the plastic is pretty durable, especially on the quality brands anyway. Now, your cheaper brands, your Walmart stuff, and Tractor Supply kayaks, things like that, those are lesser quality, thinner plastic. They're not going to hold up as well long term. But if your quality brands, they're going to take a beating. This one, though, it ain't going to take a beating. But fortunately, it's light enough weight, you don't really have to. You don't have to drag it anywhere. You can kind of, if you need to, lift it up and over stuff. Like, it's more manageable. I think we ought to switch out our baits on the light tackle rod. I don't know how long it's been, but I would assume it's probably been around 30 minutes to an hour. We'll go ahead and do it. Well, I know we haven't done it since we moved up here for sure. So it would be nice to maybe get some fresh baits on the new spot here. And I hope this place works out for us. Like, I hope we're not just sitting here twiddling thumbs. Like, I'm way more confident where we were. One of the things we're also going to do here in a minute, though, we've got a cutting board full of scraps here. We get these pieces on, I'll cut up some of these other scraps and drop them down, and hopefully that'll create some extra scent here. Yeah, these pieces look fairly washed out. Put this on. Thankfully, though, this light tackle rod has got us the extra fish today. If we had been out here with 2 rods with bigger baits on, we know for sure we'd have got 1 fish. Now, the other fish that hit this smaller rod, would they have hit the bigger baits? Maybe. Would they have gotten hooked up with the bigger hooks? Maybe, maybe not. That's one of those things we won't really know. But I'm inclined to believe that we have gotten more fish because of this than what we would have if we just had a normal setup out. And for the size of the fish that we've caught, this setup here is way more fun to catch them on than my heavier setup. All right, let's do this. Let's, boy, that cutting board's nasty, and got poop all over it. Let's just cut up some pieces here, these scraps, and we'll just dump all this stuff overboard here and try to create a little chum pile down there. The wind ain't blowing much up through here, so I don't know how much scent dispersion we're going to get as far as, the scent getting farther on up into this creek, but just the baits dropping down for 30 plus feet here that we're anchored in, that will disperse it some. And we'll make use of our scrap bait here that we wasn't going to be doing nothing with otherwise. Like I said, we don't really have to be conservative today. We got plenty enough bait for today and next couple days. Actually, probably got enough shad to last us longer than that. I just don't like using shad more than about 3 days. I want to use it really in the first 24, 48 hours. All right. Let's throw this stuff overboard. We'll give the hungry children down there, if there are some free meals. And hopefully they will find our other baits while they're at it. As you can see, as that stuff sinks down, you see how it kind of, the scales, the oil there in the water, like you can see it. And you can see how clear the water is. I hope you can see down the water there too. The pieces falling, like it's very clear up in here. Put this back here behind me now. All right. Well, we got that cleaned up. We got our house cleaning done. We got new baits on that rod. We got our whole shad over there. I can't remember if I cut slits in that other shad or not. Did I? I can't remember if I cut slits in it or not. I definitely want it to be bleeding a little bit. Oh, I'm playing mind games with myself. I'm gonna reel it in here for just a second. I can't remember if I cut slits in that or not now. I didn't. Y'all let me send that thing back down there. I didn't cut no slits in it. I can't take y'all nowhere. You know, you see me doing something. You know I like to cut me some slits in them bait, get it bleeding a little bit. And you watched me not do it and send it down and you didn't say a damn thing. I think y'all just purposely set me up for failure. I think some of y'all like that. Okay, now I feel better about it. There it goes. Yeah, this one here, this dragon rig, it'd be better if we had a suspend rig on here, but I brought 2 rods today. That's all I brought with me. And I did that because I come out here with a plan, and then when we change plans, I didn't bring any suspend rigs with me. But with that dragon sinker on the bottom, as the kayak moves around, it will drag on the bottom, obviously, and kick up some of that mud a little bit, like a carp or buffalo that's kind of nose down in the mud, you know, when they root around and stuff. And so I think it does create a little bit of attraction. With the suspend rig, I want it up off bottom. Like, I don't want my suspend rigs, I'm using a Carolina rig. And I don't want that hook down there on bottom per se, because then I'm going to have more likelihood to snag up. The dragon rig, we got the float keeping the bait up just off bottom, so I don't have to worry about them hooks catching anything down there with it regardless. Again, ain't really a right or wrong, it's just personal preference. How you like to do your rigs, what rigs you like to run. I'm trying to look out there behind us. It's tough to tell because, I mean, really, even when the wind was blowing, we didn't have a lot of chop on the water. Enough to be a nuisance, but it wasn't a lot. And now that we're up here in the calm, it's hard to, all the leaves off the trees over there, you can't really see that the wind's even blowing. Like, should we have just rode it out and stayed out there? Maybe the wind would have. Oh, look right here. Give me that fish right there. Y'all, let me reel one in. I've let you reel them in all day. Give me a turn here, by gosh. I was about to play the mind game. Like, should we have just stayed out there and tried to ride it out? But I say that, and here we get bit. All right, here's a blue cat that we can use our fancy de-hooker tool on. All right, folks. Give myself a little slack here. A fancy de-hooker tool. Again, I'm going to take my right hand. I'm going to get this hook. I'm going to go pull my line down. I've got the hook there, and I'm going to flip him just like that, and he's gone. That is so helpful. I can't believe I don't know anybody in the catfishing world using them things, but my new friend Chase down there in Islamorada, again, he's a fishing guide down there in the Keys. I met him at a gas station back in November. I'm coming out of the gas station. I stop there and get gas and get ice. And he's walking up, he's like, "Ain't you that guy from YouTube, the catfish guy?" And we got to talking, and he ended up taking me out on a trip there in November and had a good time. And so when I went back down, I called him up and he took me to the Everglades. And we were using live shrimp. And we was catching some of them, what they call hardhead catfish, the saltwater catfish. And they're apparently like the channel cats of the ocean. Like the people down there hate them. And they're a pretty good fight for their size, but they're just a kind of a nuisance fish, I guess you will. If we got water all over the screen, no, we look good. Well, it's a little, let me fix y'all again here. A little smudgy there. I was worried that fish might have put some water drops on us when I flipped him over. But anyway, them hardhead catfish down there, they're kind of just a nuisance. And if you get stuck by one of their fins, it's a bad day. It apparently puts a hurting on you. So they don't like to handle them. And the fishing guides definitely don't want their clients, who maybe aren't familiar with handling fish anyway, they don't want them handling them. So he had one of them de-hooker tools. And I'm watching him just flip them fish over like it ain't nothing. And so I started trying it. And I couldn't do it, but I was using my left hand with it. And maybe it's just poor technique. Hell, I don't know. But when I used it right-handed, it worked. It's kind of like, I'm left-handed, but like with scissors, I have to turn them upside down to be able to use them. Because they won't, if I use scissors like they are with my left hand, they won't cut. It'll just bend the paper. Can openers, same way. I have to use my right hand. They're just, I don't know why it is, but there's something about, you just can't do it. They make left-handed scissors where you can use them like normal, but for me, I ain't gonna pay for a left-handed scissor. I'll just get normal scissors and turn them upside down. And can openers, I ain't worried about because I got an electric can opener. But you know the type of can opener that you turn with your hand manually? It's made for right-handed people. I don't know if them fish dehookers are made one way or the other, but I'll tell you, it's a whole lot easier using it right-handed. That's going to make that a whole lot easier, too, getting them small fish off there. Because like fish like that, was super small, I don't want to handle him. I don't want to hold him up for a picture or nothing. So I waste a lot of time on fish that size trying to get them to open up their mouth to get them hooks out, and that's super easy. It's a pretty simple thing right here. You could probably make you one of these if you didn't want to buy. I mean, I think this is $13.99, which, I mean, for what it is, it's pretty expensive. It's a thick wire here, basically. If you had tools, like if you had some wire like this, and you had a vise at your house there, like a garage or something, you know, like a vise that would allow you to bend some wire. Because this part here, I don't even know, I think the one that Chase had didn't have this part, like it was just curved this way. You basically just need to get the hook shank into that part. I don't know what this other loop's for. Maybe that's for like pushing a hook out or something. But you could probably make you one of these with just scrap parts you have around your house, potentially. Because I mean, it is pretty ridiculous what these things cost for what it is. But I went ahead and got one. I wanted to try one out. And so far, working pretty good. I'll have to tell Daniel about that. Hell, that might be a new Catfish Sumo product. He could put my logo on there. I bet we could sell one. I'd buy one at least. That'd be at least one sale. I guarantee you I'm gonna have to buy another at some point because I'll lose that thing overboard. I guarantee it. Or I'll forget to put it in my crate, and when I get back to the launch and I turn the kayak on its side to put my wheels in, I'll throw it out. I still got to come up with a good way to store tools on this thing. I've got this cup right here, cup holder, that connects to the gear track. And I like it pretty good for storing the gulp minnows, my P-cup of gulp minnows. And it's pretty handy to just stick the pliers and knife and stuff that we're actively using on a trip, stick it down there. I kind of have it at hand's reach. I like that. But as far as storing tools for transport, I definitely don't want to leave stuff in there for that. So I'm gonna rig up something. Burley Pro makes a thing, I think it's called a sidekick or something it's called. It's like a plastic, I don't even know what you'd call it really. Like it mounts to the sides of your seat on both sides, and it's plastic, and it's got like place for your pliers and some leader line and some places you can put lures on and stuff. It looks, if it was more reasonably priced, I'd get one, but it's like $100. I'm like, I ain't paying $100 for that crap. It cost them $3 to make it. Like, I understand need to make a profit, but then there's price gouging. And what Burley Pro's doing is price gouging. So I'm not gonna get one of those, but I'm gonna rig up something similar and try to store the tools on my seat. That way they'll be hands reach and be able to be transported without fear of me dumping them out at the launch when I'm putting my wheels in, or bouncing out going down the highway when I've got it in the back of the truck or something. That's another one of them projects. If I just put enough time thinking about it, I'll come up with a way to DIY it, kind of jimmy rig it, like I've done with the rod holders. Which, again, we've not caught nothing huge today. That one fun sizer was a decent sized fish, but he was a weak fight. But so far, the fish we have caught and the takedowns we have had, the rod holder situation has functioned well. Time will tell, but so far so good. I wouldn't mind having something similar on the back. I had initially made one for the back that was going to have another option for a rod holder on the opposite side that I'd put the anchor, and a boat cleat for the anchor. But I put it on and very quickly realized that I had blocked my scupper holes. So then I couldn't put my cart in there. So I had to take it back off. And there ain't no good way to secure it back there except with them leash mounts. And they just happen to be kind of lined up on the sides of the scupper holes. So I don't really need it back there, but it was just an option at the time, at least so I thought, until I went to put my wheels in and couldn't. It's like, yep, that's not gonna work. Don't know why I didn't think about that before I put that thing on, but as we've seen evidence yesterday with me damn near taking out my carport, I'm not always the smartest. Sometimes I do dumb things. I'll never forget when I was a kid, my dad had a motorcycle. He had one of them big Honda Goldwing motorcycles. And one day, he was parked behind my mom's car. And me and my mom were getting ready to leave, and my dad had been out there, he'd been cleaning up the bike or something. He was actually out there with the bike, like he was doing something with it. And again, he was parked right behind my mom's car. And we went out, we talked to him, you know, we're going wherever, see you later, blah, blah, blah. We get in the car, my mom puts it in reverse and just backs up right into my dad's motorcycle and knocked it over and done some damage to it. It's like, what are you doing? Like we just walked out and talked to him. Like she saw the bike there because he was right there messing with it and stuff, like right behind the car. But she didn't give him any time to get it out of the way before she just put it in reverse and backed right into it. So I come by it honest, folks. I do some bonehead things that make no sense whatsoever why I do what I do, but it's genetic. I blame my mother. I also remember telling you, it's both sides of my family. My dad's big a klutz as the rest of us. I remember one time, I was real little, and this was before we moved. So I had to have been, I think we moved when I was second grade. So this would have been before that. I mean, I was young, you know, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years old. But my dad, I think he worked second shift at the time, so he'd get home around midnight. And there was a big commotion. And the next day, he had apparently got a bowl of strawberries out of the refrigerator and slipped in the floor. And when he slipped backwards, he threw the bowl up in the air and it was all over everything. Ceiling, walls, everything. And there was another time too. I guess I was probably a teenager. But my dad used to iron his clothes. And like with an actual ironing board. I don't know why. I don't think they even sell irons anymore. Nobody irons clothes anymore. Now, you just throw them in the dryer to get the wrinkles out. But old school, you know, you used an iron. And my dad, he had set the ironing board up and had the iron on, had it plugged in, and went in the other room, I guess, while it heated up. And he come back to do his ironing and tripped and went into the ironing board and knocked the damn iron through the window. So, yeah, that's my family, folks. That's when I wreck my new trailer into the post holding up my carport. That's why I do it. It's genetic. It's in my genes. Sometimes things happen, folks. You ain't even thinking about it. Like my mom running over my dad's motorcycle. We had just talked to him. She saw the bike like he was sitting there with the bike. Backed right into the damn thing. I still give her hell about that sometimes. I'm gonna have somebody else to give hell to here soon. My neighbor in front of me moved a few months, well, I guess it's back in September-ish, I guess, September, October. She sold her house to one of them real estate places. They'll give you $5 and a pack of bubble gum for your house. Well, she is hard up for money, and anyway, she sold her house with people, but she had trashed the place, man. That place was a dump. And they've been down there working. They've had a couple people down there working pretty much every day. They're there 5 or 6 days a week, all day long. And they've been there ever since they bought that place. I guess it was back September, early October. I mean, it's been a while. Anyway, they've been down there getting that stuff done. I guess they completely gutted the place because they had 3 big dumpsters. Well, I mean, it was one dumpster at a time they brought in, but like they'd fill it up, replace it. And anyway, they ended up doing 3 huge dumpsters of stuff they brought out of that house. And so I guess they just gutted it and started over, but they've apparently gotten done. And that house is allegedly on the market right now. I'm very excited about this. I thought they would probably rent it, because it seems like a lot of them real estate companies like that, they'll buy your house real cheap and they turn around, fix it up and rent it. But this place is going to sell it. There was a really hot chick down there the other day. She looked like the real estate type. And after she left, there was a sign for sale at the end of the driveway. And I was like, this is great news. So now I'm going to know for sure how much my house is worth. Because that house in front of me, it's virtually the same size as mine. It was built the same year, both in '96. And, well, I've got 3 more acres than they've got. So whatever that house goes for, I'm going to have a real good idea of what mine is worth. Now, that one's obviously been updated, because it looks pretty good, at least on the outside. I'm curious to see, they put the for sale sign up at the end of the driveway, but it's not online. Like, it's not on their website yet. I don't know what the holdup is with that, but I'm curious to see the pictures. If they have an open house, I'm totally going to go. Just out of curiosity, I'd like to see the inside of the place, because I've seen what it looked like before. I'd like to see what it looked like after. My neighbor, I had talked to my neighbor before she sold to them, because I'd had a notion, I had a really stupid idea that I might buy that house. As if I don't know a damn thing about real estate. I don't know a damn thing about fixing up a house. I don't know anything about renting. Like, that's not my lane. But I had a wild notion, like, well, if she's practically giving this place away to one of those type deals, I could give her the same amount and have me a cheap rental. But I walked into that place, y'all, because she was like, when I talked to her, she was like, well, it needs a new heat and air unit, that's out. And the floors in there had been ripped up. She had the new flooring material, but she just didn't know how to put it down. And I'm thinking, well, a new heat and air unit, that's a few $1,000, and could pay somebody to put the floor. I wouldn't have to buy the flooring material. She already had it, just to pay somebody to put it down. I'm like, if that's all it needs, that's not too bad. I walked in there, and I'm not a home inspector, certainly. What the hell do I know? But immediately, I start spotting everything wrong with this place. I walk in, I look at the sunroom and looking around. She's like, yeah, that outlet over there, I don't know what's wrong with it. It don't work. And I'm looking at that outlet, and I'm looking at the wall that the outlet is on, and I'm like, honey, you got water damage. Like, you got a leak. Like, that's all that stain. That's water damage. Water had been coming in on the wall there of the sunroom. And so I'm like, okay, great. I've just walked on to basically the back porch there, the sunroom. We've figured out we got water damage and possibly an electrical problem. And I go on in the house, and it is the biggest disaster I've ever seen. I don't know how this girl was living there. Like, when you talk to this girl, like, if you met her at the Walmart or the grocery store, you would think, like, she's just a normal person. She was living in squalor. Like, the heat and air unit was out, so, like, she had no air conditioning this summer when it was 100 degrees out there. She's in that sweat box of a house. And, I mean, it's just a disaster zone in there. There's holes in the walls, the windows, some of them were busted out. Just filth everywhere. Of course, all the floors and everything was ripped up. The kitchen was a total disaster. I mean, like, food and stuff, like, all over the damn stove. And it was just, it looked like a damn drug house. Like a I mean, she's not, I don't think she's got a drug problem. She don't play the part of and I worked in the ER a long time in my life before this YouTube crap took off. I was an ER nurse. I've dealt with a lot of people with drug addiction. I'm pretty good at spotting them. She didn't come across to that. like that to me. But boy, it looked like a damn drug house, folks. I mean, it was just a disaster of a place. And I'm walking through there, and of course, I don't have any skills like that. Like, I mean, I can catch a fish barely, but when it comes to working with tools, building stuff, fixing leaks, electrical work, things you gotta have skills to do to work on a house. Like, I have none of those skills. And I'm walking around like a little calculator in my head. I'm like, okay, we got water damage, we got electrical problem, we're gonna have to have some drywall work done here to fix the walls, we gotta have new windows put in, like, you know, the cha-ching, 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 like it's adding up in my head. And like, I know, because I don't know anybody that does this stuff and I can't do a damn thing myself, like, I'm gonna pay out the ass on labor for all this. I'm like, there's just no way. Like, there's no way I can get this house. I'm going to pay so much for it. But these companies that, well, like the one that ultimately bought her house, and she said she got $150,000 for it, but I looked it up when I was trying to find it there for this real estate group, and I can see, because it's all public record when a house sells, I can see where she sold it to them, but it said $130,000. So I don't know why she'd lie about it. She had no reason to lie, but she clearly did. Of course, she also lied about taking them cats to the pound too. She never did take them. She left them out there to starve. So who knows? People are weird like that. But nevertheless, these type of companies that do that, they've got people, because they've got so many houses, they're constantly buying new properties and stuff. They've got people on, I guess, retainer, you know, people that just kind of contractors that just work with them, and they've got enough work to give them that they just, the same crew all the time. And it was the same people down there, you know, the whole time that they've been working the last 2 or 3 months. But, you know, when you're buying that many properties, I guess, and especially when they're offering cash, no inspection, no questions asked type thing, like, they're going to be getting some problems. I mean, people that have a nice house that they could get full asking price for, they're not selling to those type places, right? So they know what they're getting into, but you know, they've got the skills and the manpower to be able to get that stuff done and get it done cheap and be able to turn a profit. I was probably not going to turn a profit on this house, whether I sold it or rented it. So thankfully, I talked myself out of a very stupid idea I had. That's just not, real estate just ain't my lane. I've never really had an interest in it. I don't like people, so I don't want to deal with tenants of renting a place. I've seen what Pro Moderator had a rental house. He does real estate development now, but he had a house that he was renting, and I seen what trouble he went through with the people that had that house before he sold it, and I'm like, that life ain't for me. It's just, that's not for me. I get the appeal of it, but it ain't for me. Daniel too, you know, Catfish Sumo Daniel, he used to own an apartment complex at one point. And you know, I heard the stories of him too, dealing with tenants and stuff like that. So I just don't have a desire for it. But I am apparently going to be getting a new neighbor at some point soon, because unless they've just got that house ridiculously priced, which I hope to find out the price of it at some point very soon, if they ever get it online, it'll probably go quick, because everything in my area goes quick. There's a new house, well, they're building 3 houses up the road from me, and it's, I mean, they look like nice houses. They're smaller, but you know, they look like nice houses. It's not the best road that it's on, but nevertheless, they're brand new. They're like 1,400 square foot, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. One of them is completely done. And the for sale sign out front has a thing on top that says pending. I looked that thing up, again, just out of curiosity, because it's down the road from me, and it's a comparable sized house to what I have. I've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and a smaller house. Would you believe, and this thing's on, I mean, it's a small lot, like 0.3 acres. $429,000 is what they had it listed for. Now, I don't know what it's actually going to sell for. It says pending, but I guarantee you it's close. It'll probably be over $400,000 that it goes for. I mean, I'm sitting on a damn gold mine with my house. I bought my house in 2006. It was a foreclosure. I paid $85,000 for it. Now, it had to be gutted and everything be redone in there, which fortunately my parents were very handy people, and they were in better health back then and was able to do a lot of that stuff for me, which saved me a bunch of money in labor and all that. But still, the price today versus what it was just, well, it's been 19 years now. It's amazing how much things went up. If I do end up selling my house, and I never thought I'd sell, like I was very content living where I do up until the last couple years. I never thought I'd sell. But with our current mayor and city council, they've ruined where I live. They've brought in all these apartment complexes and subdivisions, and they're all working their own real estate deals and stuff. They've brought in so many people and so much traffic to my town that now, living where I do, it's like living in a big city without the perks of living in a big city. Like if you live in a big city, you've got a bunch of nice restaurants. You've got a bunch of stores, right? Like you've got, if you need to go to a sporting goods store, you can go, right? If you want to go to get a steak at a steakhouse, you can do it. You're a few miles from anything in a big city. We don't have any of that. We don't have a steakhouse in my town. There's nowhere to get chicken wings in my town. There's no good stores. You want to go to a store, you go into Walmart. But by gosh, we got a bunch of traffic now. You can't get anywhere around my town anymore. And so the last year or two, I've really been thinking like, maybe I'm not going to live at my house forever. Like maybe I will move at some point. Which is unfortunate. I mean, because in a sense, like my house, it was cheap. It wasn't at the time. It didn't seem like it at the time when I got it because I wasn't making much money back then. But now, I mean, I've had the house paid off since, I think it's 2014 I paid it off. So, you know, the fact that my house was paid off, it's a small house, so it doesn't, my electric bill's cheap, water bill's cheap, property taxes is cheap. Like it doesn't cost me much money to live in my house. And I hate to give that up, but at the same time too, it's like, boy, every time I get stuck in traffic, now at some point in the next year or two, they're going to start building a new school right up the road from me. We're going to have construction traffic, and then we're going to have school traffic. We already got school traffic because I live right behind a school. I live right behind an elementary school, and they're putting in a high school up the road from it. And it's just, you know, I'm starting to question whether or not I stay there long term, and then it's a matter of like, where do you go? You're going to pay out I mean, with real estate prices how they are, if you stay in Tennessee, you're going to pay out the ass. I bet you the house in front of me there, if we had to make a wager on it right now, and I have no idea, I've looked it up, I cannot find, it's not online right now, I don't know the price. I'm just speculating. But I'm willing to bet you a fair amount of money right now that house will sell for at least $350,000. At least. My neighbor on the other side of me, it's an older house. It was built in the 60s, and it has a little bit more land. The house in front of me's got 1 acre, and I think it's like 1,100 and something square foot, 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. my neighbor beside me is built in the 60s. The upstairs, I think, is 1,000-something square foot, and then the basement is apparently finished now, and I think it's another 1,000 square foot, and they got 2.5 acres. It went for $400,000, and that was early last year, maybe the year before that sold, and prices have went up since then. So I bet you they'll get at least $350 for the place, at least. So I don't know. Part of me is like, well, it'd be nice to move to Florida, at least for the winter. But I don't know that I would necessarily want to live down there in the summer. And if you live down there all the time, would I like it as much? I don't know. It's very busy down there too, a lot of people, a lot of traffic. But it is beautiful. It's beautiful year-round. I don't want to go to any of the surrounding states. Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, they've all got state income taxes. And I know that's not a big deal to people who live there, but it's a big deal to me. You know, I've worked in all those states as a travel nurse. And so I got stuck paying the state income tax. Even though I didn't live there, I worked there and I had to pay the state income tax. And I guess when you grow up in that situation, you're living there, you don't think much about it. But it really eats into your money. And it's like, what do these states give you? What's better about Kentucky or Georgia or North Carolina or South Carolina? What's better about them than Tennessee? You're paying out 3%, 5%, 6% of your income to taxes just going to the state. Are your roads better? No. Are your schools better? No. Are your property taxes lower? No. Are your energy prices cheaper? No. What the hell are you getting for the money? What is it? What is the perk of living in Kentucky versus Tennessee or Georgia versus Tennessee? You know, unless your work is there, your industry, your career, whatever it is, there's no advantage to living there. Now, I mean, if you've grown up there and that's where your family's at and you want to stay near your family, that's one thing. But if you're just looking, if you're living somewhere else and you're looking to move somewhere, say in the southeastern United States, and you're looking around, that's why everybody's coming to Tennessee, because we have no state income tax. Like our roads aren't great by any stretch. Our school system certainly aren't great, but neither is anybody else's. And so like if you're from New York, if you're from Michigan, Ohio, California, you know, you're one of these people that are migrating here to Tennessee, and you're looking around at Tennessee versus Alabama versus Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Kentucky, the overwhelming majority of the time, the answer is Tennessee. So that's why all these people are coming here, and it's driving up our real estate prices. I don't know how the rest of the market is as far as real estate goes in these other states I mentioned. But for me personally, looking at possibly moving at some point in the coming years, there's no reason for me to even consider these other states. Unless there was just somewhere like, I'm trying to think of, and there's really nowhere, I'm just dying to go. But like if there was someplace fishing-wise, like, boy, I really want to live next to this body of water. No, there's nothing. There's nothing in those states I mentioned. So, I don't know where, I mean, you know, and of course I could stay within Tennessee, but it don't matter where you move in Tennessee, everything's getting developed. Everything is. These real estate developers, because the demand is so high here, they're all coming up, buying up this farmland, going to the city council, county commissions, and schmoozing those people, and greasing palms to get zoning regulations changed to be able to build whatever they want for as many people as they want. And it's a damn shame, you know. I hate to see all this farmland, this beautiful countryside. You hate to see it all get developed. That's where we're at with it. It's just gonna, I think it's just gonna get worse. I don't see it slowing down. I don't know where I'll end up. May end up where I am, but it's just, I spend a lot of time being frustrated. Every time I drive, I try to get anywhere around my town, I just get frustrated with it, man. Who knows? Maybe I end up in South Florida. Maybe I completely lose my mind and move to a different country or something. Well, you see them videos online, people do that. They move out of the United States and go to these countries where the dollar is worth more than the actual country's money, and they live like kings. At least they claim they do. They live a better lifestyle, a more luxurious lifestyle with less money, what they claim. I've never been to any of those type places. I've never, well, I can't say I've never been out of the country. I've been to the Bahamas, which is technically out of the country. And I've been to Puerto Rico, which is a United States territory, but kind of its own. It's a different world there, that's for sure. But I've never been to, well, I've never been to these other foreign countries. So I don't really know if things are better or worse or whatever. Who knows what the future holds, though? Never say never. I mean, I sure as hell never thought I'd be sitting out here not getting a bite and doing YouTube for a living. We really ain't caught nothing. Well, we got that one. When we moved up here, we had that one bite on the big rod, and we had that one small fish a little while ago. But otherwise, we had nothing going on here. Our action was coming out there at the creek mouth. It was a mistake moving up here. At this point, though, I'm not going to move again. It'd take too much time, and I'm not going to fish much longer anyway. Whenever the battery, let me see where we're at. Yeah, my battery's winding down anyway. Whenever the battery craps out, I'm probably going to call it a day, because I've got a pretty good haul to get back to the, we're certainly closer now to the car, but again, this creek is, to get out here is over a mile for sure, probably closer to 2. So I'll have by the time I reel everything up, pull up the anchor, pedal back, it'll take me 30 minutes. Once that sun starts to really go down, and it's already dropping in the sky, like it'll really start to cool off, and so I'll get back and get loaded up before dark. I really thought, and this is one of those things that's kind of different than most of the year. Most of the year, I don't want to fish midday. But this time of year, when it's been super cold like it has, and water temps are like they are, I wanted to fish midday through the afternoon, the warmest part of the day. That's when I thought our best chance at action would happen. And, you know, we did get some fish. We got that one decent one and several small fish. So the setup today, I mean, for what I wanted to do, a big bait and some small baits, it's kind of worked out. We had some action. I'd like to be getting more with the small rod, but it was enough to keep me entertained. I mean, if we'd been sitting out here all afternoon and only got that one fun sizer on the big rod, like, that wouldn't have made for a very good afternoon. It'd been nice to be out. Lord knows I've been cooped up in the house and stuff with the cold weather we've had, but that light tackle rod, man, I get frustrated sometimes when I'm getting them small fish pecking at my baits, when I've got bigger baits on and they're chewing them up and stuff. But like when you actually got a rod that's appropriate for the size of those fish, it's actually fun. It might be a good thing that we've incorporated that. And it'll be interesting too when we do this setup, and I've, you know, over the course of time, when we're running bigger baits, what will it be like as far as the size of the fish that we get on those? Will the small fish leave our big baits alone because they have something that they can actually eat over here beside it? I don't know. But what I'll probably do the next day or two as I'm fully testing out this rod holder setup is I'll probably leave on the smaller hooks with the thinner gauge wire, run that setup for the next couple days until I get comfortable with this, till I trust it fully. And once I do, then we'll go back to the bigger hooks, heavier leaders and stuff. I don't fully trust it yet. It feels solid, like when I've rigged everything up and put it on my carport, and I put my rods in the rod holder, and I go down and grab the end of my rod and yank it down, like a fish taking it down. It feels solid. Like, it feels good. But how it feels in the carport versus how it's actually going to do when a beast of a catfish grabs hold of that bait and takes off, who knows? Either way, though, I'm going to go home happy today, as long as I've still got car windows and catalytic converter. If I get back to the launch and my vehicle's been vandalized, that's going to ruin the day. I've heard bad things about the launch I used. I've never actually experienced anything bad. Oh, and birds over there. Them ain't the kind of white birds that fly around like I was talking about. They're over there. Them are like they almost look like a pelican or something. They're a little bit bigger. I guess they're migrating through too. But yeah, I've heard bad things about this launch. I've heard people's windows getting bashed out and catalytic converters stolen, but knock on wood, I've never had any issues. And I've never really seen glass everywhere. You know, like if your window gets busted out, there's going to be glass everywhere, all over the ground. Like, I've never noticed that. So, you know, is it actually true? Is it people that just don't want me coming down here and filming? You never know. That's kind of the thing when you're doing YouTube. You reach the number of people that I reach in these videos. There's a lot of other fishermen that don't want me burning spots. And sometimes you gotta weed through the information you get. Sometimes it ain't always accurate, if you know what I mean. But when somebody tells me, hey, be careful at this spot because, you know, vandalism's happening, you do got to kind of take it serious, because Lord knows a lot of these ramps around here do get vandalized. Hopefully it'll be a cheap fix though on my trailer. I don't need vandals to damage my stuff. I can do it my damn self. I can mess my own stuff up, by gosh. I'm sure Mark's son Ace will cut me a deal on it. I just gotta give him a call. And I was able to bend the metal back away from the tire. And it didn't break the weld completely. It broke half of it off, so it's still on. So it's not something super urgent. It's not something I gotta drop everything and take over. We're gonna be able to fish. And we'll see. I'm probably gonna fish out of this kayak again tomorrow, I would say. I may take the other Hobie with the motor out. I gotta do a video at some point soon where I prostitute myself for a battery. I gotta do a sales pitch for a battery, because I'd taken a free battery for that Bonafide kayak, the 36 volt. And of course I sold that kayak, but I was still obligated to do the battery thing. So I bought a battery, a 12 volt battery, because I was going to need new 12 volt batteries anyway for my other motor. So I bought a battery from the company that sent me the free battery for the 36 volt, and I got to do that spiel. So I need to, probably at some point this week, I got to get that kayak out again and try to get a video just so I can do that damn battery thing. That's my last obligation though, by gosh. That's the last thing that I'm obligated to do. And I don't think I'm gonna take on any more obligations this year either. I think 2025 is gonna be a obligation-free year for me. Where are we at on time here, folks? Yeah, battery's in the red. Probably got a few minutes left. I'm disappointed with us moving up here. I wish. It's tough to say looking behind me because we're completely shielded from the wind here. It may be okay back there now. Maybe we shouldn't have moved. Maybe we should have rode it out. I don't know. You know, it's one of them things. We could have been back there and just kept getting blown because my anchor wouldn't hold and then not caught any more fish. We come up here, we're at least able to keep our baits where I thought we wanted them, but we're just not getting any action. We're just one tug on the line there with the big bait and one small fish on the other. Ain't nothing going on right here where we're at. But at least we got some fish today. You know, nice to get a tug on the line from a catfish again. It ain't the same as catching a shark, but hey, I'll take it. It's better than not getting a tug on the line at all. So I'll call today a success. Tomorrow, we'll try somewhere different. I don't know where, but we'll try somewhere different. Maybe hit another creek mouth, maybe hit a deep point, something that leads off into the main channel. Because I really do think over the next few days, we're going to get some more active fish. I think the water's going to heat up a little bit with the warmer temperatures, and I think any fish that were kind of shut down from the extra cold temps last week, I think they're going to get turned on and be feeding up. So I want to be somewhere to intercept them as they work up either on the points or in the creeks or whatever. So we'll either do that, or if we find a creek, maybe if I launch in a creek somewhere that has some bait activity, we may start fishing there and work our way out. So we'll see. But either way, I'm going to try to get on the water tomorrow. Hopefully that'll be the next video if things work out. If I skunk or something, obviously not, but that's the plan. But anyway, we'll figure it out. We'll piece it together. We'll get things dialed in again. And yeah, so anyway, y'all, thanks for coming with me today. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. This battery's going to die soon anyway. I think I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here and pack up and everything, head toward the house. But yeah, thanks for coming with me today. It's fun for us to go catfishing together again. The saltwater was fun, man. I had a damn good time down there. I hope you enjoyed them videos, but we're back after the cats now. And hopefully 2025 is going to be a productive year catfishing for us. At least I hope it is anyway. Anyway, I'll see y'all tomorrow.